Welcome into the Show 6 podcast, where we break down the championship series for Pokemon Go. In this episode, we're kicking things off in Portland, where our 2023 World Champion ItsAXN rolled to gold with Big Man Blastoise. Next, we'll travel to Bologna, where Filbeg completed just the second perfect sweep in championship series history. Finally, we'll wrap up with the Durban South Africa event, where Diveshan claimed a decisive Game 5 victory to become the first South African to qualify for the World Championships. All of this, plus a GoFest preview, our first impressions of the Delightful Days meta, and more. So if you're ready, good luck, lock in, and have fun. Welcome in, everyone. It's so good to see you all here today. I have my illustrious co-host, the Zzweilous, joining on the show per usual. ZZ, we've got an awesome episode to talk about. It feels like every single week we're making history, and it's really cool to see some older names like ItsAXN rising back to prominence. I mean, the world stage is going to be wild this year.
Yeah, hello, Speedy. Thanks for having me once again. In a little bit of a different environment. I'm visiting family this week, but it allowed me to essentially watch the Bologna Special Championships while not having to cook for myself. So that was really, really appreciated.
That's a plus.
And yeah, I got offered a show like 18-0, especially from a player that we may not have seen on the Play Pokemon leaderboard so far, with Filbeg taking it all. And obviously, leading into that, Big Man Blastoise, ItsAXN finding a new signature Pokemon. Like he's still on that Medicham propaganda. He had the plushie in his interviews, very well spoken interviews, if I may say so myself. He did call for the Force Palm Medicham. But yeah, he did manage to leave it behind and actually unwash himself.
Yes.
if you could ever say that about one of the best players this game has ever seen.
Exactly. Yeah, he was very well spoken, almost like a politician campaigning for Medicham. I think he did one interview. He said Force Spawn Medicham, and then another interview he said Psyshock Medicham. He just wants that Pokemon to get buffed back into relevancy, and we did see the plushie up on stage as well.
He's on message, and I can appreciate that.
He absolutely is, right? He's very consistent. And I know a lot of trainers are very grateful to him for jumping right into content after the World Championships. I remember he started off his YouTube channel with the move count timing video series, which I still think is very, very helpful. And then he's continued to just stream, make content, make videos after that. So shout out to ItsAXN. Before we get to the grand finals and the Blastoise dominance, I'd love to talk about the top cut and maybe some of the meta trends that we saw. A few players I wanted to shout out. It was very cool to see Bird Power come back to the stage. She had a really fun interview as well during the broadcast, and she's obviously like basically a prodigy at the game. I remember back to Indianapolis in 2022 when she just cleared out her division and then went to the Masters division and was cleaning up there as well. So I'm very, very proud of her. We also had Dileptron bringing the Shadow Blastoise, which I thought was really sick. That's what I expected to do well, because when you look at the simulations, the Shadow Blastoise seems to perform a lot better than the regular. And then we had Out of Pocket, of course, doing out of pocket things. But I got to mention a couple of stars, actually 3 different stars. I wanted to zero in on Kobe Couplant, as well as Chemcoop and Stud Muffins. Those 3 players have been kind of like on the cusp, maybe a top cut here, top cut there, respectable trainers, but nothing like what they were this past weekend in Portland. They were super, super impressive. I'm not sure what you saw on your side, ZZ, but I was shocked that Kobe Coupland in particular was able to dominate with Diggersby and Clodsire Double Ground.
Yeah, I really enjoy myself a medium-sized tournament because Portland had 107 players competing, and that is a good chunk more than we had, for example, at the Seville Special Championship, where we had more signups, but at the end of the day, only like 65 people actually sat down at the tables to play their matches. I feel like 107 is a nice number because it essentially makes it so that it's not one of those events in a big hub where everybody just travels to, and we essentially just see the same people over and over, but it's like a medium-sized affair where we can
Mm.
see some locals maybe that get the chance to shine. And I feel like Kobe Copeland really embodies that because if I remember correctly from the broadcast, I actually haven't looked that up. I should have looked that up, but he only ever competes in Portland, if I'm if I'm remembering that correctly.
No, you're
Um,
correct.
and he's always putting on a show. I feel like Kobe Copeland probably was the player with the highest catches made per games played ratio. I feel like he always managed to wiggle his way out of difficult situations. And not only did he do that, but he also did it against some of the best players in the world. I feel like, what was it? Was he the yeah, he was in the out of pocket group. So he actually
Yes.
played the losers finals against Pocket, who is a strong argument for being, if not the best player in North America this season, then at least top three.
Hmm.
And on day two, I think he did the same thing to Junebug, where he
Yep.
just took down another giant of the competitive scene. And to do that as somebody who maybe does not get all the practice that those people that travel to 10 plus events a season get, that is beyond impressive. And it was definitely a joy to see Kobe Copeland do well, especially because he had a team that was fairly unusual, at least for North American standards.
I love that you tack that on at the end, and you're exactly right. I think the North American standards, I'm so used to it, and I saw the team, and I was thinking like, I don't know if Kobe's cooking here or if this is just kind of something that's going to fizzle out. But you're exactly right. He faced Out of Pocket to make day number two. It was his last round of the group stage, and then he faced ItsAXN directly afterwards. And then he also, or excuse me, yeah, he faced ItsAXN and then Pocket in the loser side. Then he took on Dunebug and 2-0 Dunebug, only to be knocked out of the tournament by Ashton Ash. So honestly, like out of any gauntlet of four players that you could have gone up against in Portland, this might have been the strongest. And we look
Yeah.
at Kobe Copeland's performance in Portland last year. You're exactly on the money about that as well. He finished third last year with Cresselia, Gligar, Mandibuzz, Shadow Poliwrath, Registeel, and Whiscash. A different time, I might say, but just a testament to how he's able to adapt to the new metas.
Yeah, maybe we had some timeless travels influencing the meta back then. But yeah, we're in the future now. Not in the future, probably in the present rather. It would be difficult
Yes,
to be in the future,
that would be cool
and
though.
yeah, it is true. But yeah, we have no future side Chrysalias, but we do have the Big Man Blastoise being the pick of the day, the pick of the weekend,
Yep.
and I know that you have been a big fan of Blastoise for a long time, Speedy. Did you did you know this was going to happen? Because I feel like you always had like a pretty good feeling about Blastoise, or were you like almost writing it off after like we came all the way to like the last 2 weeks of this meta without Blastoise
Yeah.
doing anything, and like it was on Fraud Watch, but its accent really showed what it was capable of.
It was absolutely on Fraud Watch. I started to get a feeling that there might be something there based on how Dilat played it at the previous regional. I thought that safe switching it, playing the Shadow again, I thought was the the choice. But I was really surprised, honestly, to see how Axon deployed it. We saw most of the games, and Stark and I commented on this right when we were doing our commentary together. Most of the games you see him safe switching the Blastoise, and he's able to get an extra rollout. Not dissimilar from playing any 3-turn fast attack user, where you want to get that little lead on energy before you go into the next matchup when your opponent counter swaps. And he did that really really well, and then he ends up leading it in I think game 3 or game 4 of the grand finals. So he kind of flipped our expectations as well. Blastoise is really impressive though, because rollout doesn't feel like an attack that you can farm things down with unless it's a really soft target like a Talonflame or a Typhlosion or something really really
It
weak
got
to
nerfed at
rock.
the start of the season, right? They decreased the
Yeah,
damage by one per rollout.
yeah, exactly. Increase the damage, or no, increase the energy but decrease the
Yeah,
damage.
so they buffed the energy a while ago, but the damage
Hmm.
also, and then they went back on part of the damage buff. So
Yeah.
it's still better than it used to be, but it's worse than last season when we had Pokemon like Bibarel or even Dunsparce make a name for themselves.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I felt like Rollout was kind of in a curious place. Blastoise also has like a really interesting attack stat. I think a lot of people don't know the IV spreads that you can use to win certain charge attack priority ties. Because if you look at Blastoise, I mean, the rank one is going to have about 110 attack, which I think is a little bit higher than some of the bulkier Great League picks. But it's not anything like, catastrophic like a Typhlosion or a
It's in
Talonflame.
a weird tier because, like,
Yeah.
recently I played Blastoise in GBL, and I
Mhm.
thought I had the match lost because while I had a Hydro Cannon loaded, my opponent's Shadow Canto Marowak also had a Bone Club. And because I always see the Canto Marowak as such an aggressive Pokemon that does a lot
Yeah.
of damage in a short amount of time, I was
Yep.
very certain that I would lose that charge attack priority. But actually, Blastoise typically comes out ahead just by a little margin. And
Mhm.
I think my confusion is partly explained due to the fact that you often see the shadow bonus on the Marowak damage. So it looks
Yeah.
immediately more threatening, but because charge attack priority is decided by the raw stats rather than
Yep.
by the 20% multiplier, Blastoise can actually win that.
Yeah, and I think those nuances are really important. Blastoise has more attack than Claydol, but less than Furret, which feels like really counterintuitive, right? Because you think of Furret as like a bulky normal type Pokemon with an above average attack stat, but Blastoise being significantly like 3 to 5 points lower than that is pretty interesting. But yeah, I was just really impressed with how Axon played it. He moved it around, pivoted quite a bit. If I remember correctly, he did rely a lot on double water. He played a lot of like I think this is what Stark and I talked about. He played a lot of like random Pokemon in the lead and double water in the back, being Lapras and Blastoise. So it's like Shadow Jump Bluff in the lead or Tinkaton in the lead. But to his credit, he did play. He didn't play double water every game in the grand finals. Game one was Tinkaton, Malamar, Blastoise. Game two was Diggersby, Shadow Jump Bluff, Blastoise. Game three, Shadow Jump Bluff, Lapras, Blastoise, our only example of double water. And then game four, he went ABA water with Blastoise lead, Lapras, and Shadow Jump Bluff. And I think a lot of this has to be viewed in kind of the context of the team he was up against, because you can't just run ABA water in GBL and have a lot of success, especially if there's so many Jump Bluff with Energy Ball for whatever mysterious reason, or so many Superiors and Cradillies. But he was able to make it work in this tournament. I'm not sure if there's anything that like really impressed you about the gameplay, but I felt like ItsAXN's counts were probably the best part of what he did this weekend. He never lost track of energy, not even for a second.
I actually have like multiple notes on just how Axon played his games, and
Mm-hmm.
also when I knew that something special was going to happen that weekend. Because I'll be honest, I have been rooting for Axon for a long while now. For one, because he's a fairly likable dude. I never
Yeah.
actually talked to him much, but I really enjoy what he's been doing in terms of being an ambassador for the community as a creator, be it on Twitch or YouTube. But yeah, he's like always like he is polite without being like boring or shy. Like he strikes a good
Mm-hmm.
balance. And I think that really draws a lot of especially newer players in. And I'm really grateful for that because I'm always rooting for the scene to grow. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that Axon has been a big part of that ever since he took his world championship title and used the newfound audience to build essentially a little bit of a content creation career on that.
Yep.
But also, I really like a good story. If you like, I'm a sports journalist, and if there's a comeback story of somebody who used to dominate their sport essentially, um, but I feel like ever since he won Worlds, I think Axon won like or not played like 10 events, but
Mm-hmm.
he only made top eight twice, winning one medal, which was I think it might have been Louisville earlier this season where he got a
Yeah.
fourth place.
Fourth
But
place.
this was a trainer who he won Portland in 2023. He was a previous North American international champion, and he was a world champion. He was like the pinnacle of Pokemon Go PvP, and he went almost 2 years trying to find his form. And now, like him finding his form just as this season leads into NAIC, leads into Worlds. This is such an intriguing and compelling storyline that I was definitely like hoping for him to have this moment and really excited when he did manage to have it. And the moment when I knew it was going to happen was his winners semifinals in the group stage on day one.
Mm.
because that lined up to be against Out of Pocket. Again, somebody
Mm.
that I consider top three in North America right now. Um, and Axon not only played super well and took that series, but he also showed how calm he could be under pressure in multiple scenarios, in multiple situations. He actively waited to see what Pocket would do, whether a fast move would come through, whether a swap would come through, so he wouldn't waste energy on a target that he didn't want to use the energy on. And
Mm.
being so locked in, even when faced with one of the most elite competitors in North America, that just shows that you're on form. That just shows that you can do it again. And yeah, it definitely led into a fantastic tournament run. And I definitely want to shout out the Blastoise meta call because I think like rollout is a rock type fast attack,
Mm.
and that is awkward in a meta where you have like a lot of fighting types. But the main fighter in the current meta is Malamar. While Malamar still has a decent matchup against Blastoise,
Mhm.
Blastoise has such a better time into Malamar compared to the old Primeape or Annihilate. And I thought the idea of safe swapping Blastoise in a meta that doesn't have fighters to resist the fast attacks, and the only grass type you really see doesn't run grass attacks and is also part flying. I
Exactly.
thought that was a great use of a rollouter.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's one of those instances where if you can get past this one huge obstacle, you can likely take it all the way. And getting past Pocket felt like a milestone. It felt like after that,
It's
I
like a
agree with you.
momentum win, right? Like
Yes,
once you do that, like you know, okay, I'm I still got it. I'm still him, kind
yes,
of, and
yes,
it was
exactly.
great to witness.
Yeah, it felt like when he won that series, it was 2-1, so it came down to a decisive game three. When he won that series, I was like, oh, I think Axton's back. I think he's really here this time, which is was very very like poetic to see. Um, Axton's team was interesting too because you mentioned safe switching the Blastoise into a field with basically no Primeape, no Annihilate, no Poliwrath, whatever. He was actually running Skull Bash on the Blastoise, and his Ice Beam tech was on the Lapras, which made it a bit of an interesting matchup for him whenever he did encounter a Jump Love, because he kind of lacked a hard answer. On his team, he had the Blastoise, the Diggersby, Shadow Jumpluff, Lapras, Malamar, and Tinkaton. And I'd say that Jumpluff is like relatively neutral into just about everything on the team. I don't see any Talonflame. I don't see Typhlosion. I don't see Corviknight anywhere. It really feels like there's really no hard answer. And I feel like so much of where players get hung up is trying to build the perfect team with no weaknesses that breaks all the cores, et cetera, et cetera. But what's much more important than that is actually picking your weakness and then refining a way to beat it, to overcome it. And I think that Axon did a great job of that because, like you said, we can expect no fighters in the meta, but what we can also expect is 69% jump love usage in the entire tournament. All right. It's very nice. I know, but
I
expecting
consider
this,
this unfortunate, but also like nice.
yeah, yeah, unfortunate, but exactly, but also nice, kind of a mixed bag, right? But I think finding creative ways to beat the jump love was really, really important for him in his tournament victory. So again, yeah, just knowing your team inside and out is super, super important. Um, I feel like Axon really needed this win. I feel like as a perennial competitor, obviously, I think everyone in Pokemon looks up to Wolf and how Wolf is able to win worlds. But it was, it was, oh my goodness, it was almost a decade ago now. And then you look at him and you say, well, does he still have that world champion spirit? Does he still have that competitive edge? And then he comes out and wins these bigger tournaments, and then he wins an IC, and then he has all these incredible speeches, and the content he makes is insane. I feel like
Aura
Pokemon.
farming is what the kids call it. Yes.
Absolutely. Just straight up farming aura. And honestly, VG is so lucky to have Wolf because he is such a persona. And I feel like Pokemon Go is still searching for its Wolf in a sense. We're still searching for that trainer that will win tournament after tournament, pop up here and there, and be relevant for almost a decade, which is very hard to do, extremely hard to do. So seeing Axon come back in and win was very, very poetic. And to your point earlier, I think I've talked about this on the last episode. I think it's really critical to peak at the right moment in the season, because you have trainers maybe like Wadaj that will come in and win the first event, and it shows that they can adapt to the meta really well. You have Rise that wins at like halfway meta, where things are changing. It shows you that he's one of the best in the world at reading the meta and understanding changes. But then you have trainers like Axon or like Pocket, who come on late in the season, like Pocket did last season at NAIC, and they just absolutely are on fire going into Worlds, and that's so critical to find your momentum at the right time in the season, because you can be super hot in September, but then by the time the next August rolls around and the meta has changed and you haven't won anything in a while, and maybe your confidence is a little low, it can be a tough go at Worlds.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that Vadaj run too, where he like won 3 out of 4 tournaments in a row, and the only one that he didn't win was a third place at Worlds. So yeah, like if you have that momentum going when it really matters, which is at the ICs on the world stage,
Mm-hmm.
that can really make a difference. But especially with this world's meta being a little different from the previous ones, and that they actually dared to change up things a little more than usual.
Yeah.
I wonder whether these experiences from this past meta will count as much as previously. And I also wonder how competitors will um, essentially get in form ahead of Worlds, because I think
Mm-hmm.
one nice thing about the development of Pokemon Go PvP, especially in Show 6, is that I found there to be a lot more grassroots tournament options, be it practice tournaments or
Mm-hmm.
a little more prestigious priced events that the community organizes. And I'm sure there will be at least one in the lead up to the big event, which is Worlds, as well this summer. There's going to be a big break between NEIC and Worlds, and yeah, it's like you got to stay sharp. You got to predict the meta development that you may not be familiar with at all, because
Mm-hmm.
there's the black box of no official tournaments. And but at least having your confidence up, because so much of
Yeah.
this is a mental game. Also, I think that is what's going to translate beyond the Might and Mastery meta.
I agree with you. I think it's very critical to be to perform well and to also be confident going into this. Speaking to the new meta, I'm like itching to talk about it. Right, you brought it up a little bit. I'm like, oh man, I wish we could just jump ahead to that segment. So if you're listening, we will discuss some of our picks that we've made for the upcoming meta, our first impressions. But of course, we're going to learn a lot more once we actually do those practice tournaments. So I've got one eye on the Candle Cult server looking for these practice tournaments to pop up. Axon did tweet. He tweeted on May 27th, and he said, "quote This is the best pre-Worlds moveset update they've ever done. I couldn't be happier with the size of the changes. NAIC is going to be the Wild West," with a smiling cowboy emoji. I think this is also fascinating too, because you have a trainer that not only has a ton of momentum after winning Portland and reclaiming, his gold that he won a couple of years back, but he's also very excited about the meta changes, and he's also one of the most brilliant minds in the community. So I don't know. I mean, Axon could be gearing up for a very special NAIC and Worlds run. It seems like all the pieces are falling into place.
Yeah, but like one thing that I will say right now, Metacham is not going to be viable. Just to get that out of the way. But yeah, again, like I'm really excited to not only team build in this meta, but also see what other people are thinking about. Because one thing that we did see, going into Utrecht previously, going into Portland, and then going into Bologna, is that a lot of competitors just looked at the previous event and then either copied the winning team, or copied the winning team and tweaked like one element of it, or
Yeah.
decided to hard counter the winning team. But now we essentially have a clean slate again, and that's leading into an IC. And I think that is very exciting just from a viewer's perspective. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, dude, freaking rip to Shadow Malamar, right? I mean, it had like 10 seconds of fame, and Filbeg made it look really good.
Yeah,
Um,
it got to win a tournament undefeated, and then it retired. Like this is
and
definitely
then
going out on a high.
absolutely crash and burn after that. At least that's what I personally expect, and I think you do as well. Um, before we wrap up our Portland coverage, I just wanted to shout out again to Kem Coop. He was really impressive. I said this during the cast. He was willing to take risk and to call leads a bit more than other competitors when it was really important to do so. He even led his Claydol into Ticketon. I think that was the only game that he won in the grand finals versus Axen, which is very, very impressive to make that read. Stud Muffins, I feel like that trainer is on the cusp of winning an event. I think if you didn't have a former world champion, a former second place NAIC finisher, Dunebug, Adib, Pranav, all these other trainers, if you didn't have them at this event, I think Stud Muffins had a solid shot to win it. And I really want to see Ash Nash win an event. I mean, he's such a welcoming, calm, and kind personality. I want him to succeed as well, in a similar vein that I want Axen to succeed. So I'm sure he'll get his gold, and I hope that he doesn't give up. I don't know if you have any comments on players, but I just wanted to plant one more seed. I'm curious what you thought of the Speedy Stark casting duo, because I've heard some things. I heard some people give me feedback.
Yeah, like we have not exchanged notes, but this is like exactly what I wrote down. Like my notes
Okay.
read Stud Muffins, most improved player question mark.
Yeah.
Ashton Ash, best player without a gold question mark. Like those trainers that came in just behind the Big Accent storyline, I feel like they're due their moment in a way. And they've definitely shown that they belong with the best this season. And like, who knows? NEIC is coming up. Nash was in the grand finals last year. Maybe he can do it again. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is definitely some storylines we want to keep an eye on. But yeah, the House Stark casting debut. I personally loved it. I
Yeah.
thought this was like between I messaged you that like straight after the event when you had that exchange where you pretended to go coloring when that came up in one of the segments. Like you were like, okay, picture the scene. The social media segment, people can use the hashtag play Pokemon and show up on screen, and the casters have to talk about it. And
Yes.
Speedy led into it. Somebody was like at the coloring booth and just like painting pictures of Pokemon. And Speedy was like, "Yep, sounds good. I'm out. I'll do this for the next 5 minutes." And like Stark had to take over, essentially like hosting and talking through the social media segment. And at one point, he was like trying to talk to you as if you were back, like, maybe Speedy is back already from his coloring. But he was not. Speedy was not back from his coloring job. You just sat there next to him, like, apparently gave him a stern look and said, "No, no, you walk us through all of this." And yeah, it was hilarious. I thought you guys had immediate chemistry. I love that. Stark also got to cast alongside somebody like you who just has that experience and can ease somebody who definitely has talent and has
Mm,
done great casting jobs at grassroots level before, but maybe hasn't had those cameras on him in to that degree just yet.
mm,
I thought that you did a good job of easing him into it, and I also love that he brings a different personality to the
mm.
table than some of our most beloved casters do. Because
Agreed.
if we look at a Two Butters, if we look at a Home Slice Henry, those people are knowledgeable, they are hyped, they are loud, and they definitely try to make everything as exciting as possible. But they also have a fairly similar style, in my
Mm,
opinion, where it's like very hype shoutcasting, whereas Stark just has a more low key personality. And I think that is excellent because it just complements other casting styles so well. He's still quick witted, but he's easy to follow. Like a lot of my friends have complimented his voice. Like everybody
yeah.
was like, "Oh, how Stark! He's such a soothing voice. I could fall asleep to that." But that's a compliment. It's not boring. It just
Yeah.
has such a nice voice to listen to. And yeah, I feel like he had a good amount of wordplay here and there, like really quick wit, but also just like the matchup knowledge. So definitely a great fit behind the caster's desk.
I remember years ago when PvP was first coming, to the game, and King IV went around kind of dubbing the best trainers in North America, the so-called Elite Four, and of course Stark was a part of that. He was the first trainer to get rank 10 in Go Battle League in the first season that we know of, right? Check our NA privilege there. But Stark has consistently been a trainer that competitively I always looked up to. I always felt like he was top tier, a cut above basically everyone else. And I remember at Sylph Continentals when he and I battled each other, I actually aligned my Fortress versus his Mew in a decisive game 3, if I recall correctly, and that was Raps, right? And I felt like after I took him down, he said that if I could get past him, I could get past anyone. And then I said, "Man, if I knock Stark out of the tournament, I cannot afford to give up. I cannot afford to not be 100% because he deserves this much more than I do. He's the best, right? Like if I took him down, there's no excuse for me to not give everything I have to try to win." And it was really like poetic in a sense because I looked up to him quite a bit, and then the casting became a thing in 2022, and I worked a ton of these events, and I feel like I've hit my stride. I feel pretty confident casting, and he says he looks up to me in the casting area, so it was really like a swing back and forth of different talents and friendship. And yeah, I just want to say I admire Stark still to this very day. Very kind person, soothing for sure, but also very talented and very grounded. And I thought we had a really fun cast. I wanted it to feel a bit more like conversational, like fun, because I think that helps him to be less nervous. So that's why I did the goofy stuff that I did. Plus, it's the last show of the season, so we screwed
Yeah,
around a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit.
It was a
You
good
know,
time. And like it
yeah.
wasn't the goofiest thing you did that weekend because there was like there was like this Mark Park segment and
Oh, dude. Cheers,
like
Mark Park.
people were confused, but I
Yeah.
guess in a good way mostly.
Yeah, I was trying to channel some kind of mix of Super Troopers and Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. That was like the medium I wanted to hit. But yeah, pulling Pocket and Dr. Roast Beef into that was hilarious. Um, yeah, I was told that I should do more segments like that. That they want to make that a recurring character. So we'll see.
Oh yeah. Okay, I love it. Now we get to split the cast as personality too. But yeah, you definitely picked out the right people to do the segment with because they definitely leaned into the whole fun heavily, and I thought that really made the segment.
It was awesome because before the segment started, Pocket could not keep it together. He kept looking at me and just laughing and just cracking up. And he's like, "Okay," he's like, "I gotta lock in." And then Dr. Roast Beef was basically doing his best not to laugh. He was trying to make me laugh. That was his goal, right? So when Pocket turned to me and he said, "Could you repeat?" But he like put the words really close together, so it sounded like Gurpeat. I was like, "Did you just call me Gurpeat?" He's like, "Gurpeat." Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
that was fun, and that was totally organic. That part was not planned. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with the skits, and I really again admire Stark, and I thought we had a really good show. I thought Rise and Phoebe were also very good together. I heard a lot of people saying good things about them as well. So congrats to those two fellas. I think Rise is. Yeah, I saw one reply that he's basically like the Michael Jordan of Pokemon Go. He does the casting, he does the competing, he does it all, content, and yeah, he's a special guy for sure. Well, I think that's all I have for Portland. A shout out to all the trainers that performed really well. Shout out to my boy Pranov for also top cutting. That was really impressive. And yeah, if you want, we can go to Bologna. And I'm really going to rely on you, my friend, because this stream ended before I woke up. So I watched back the grand finals. I watched back Filbeg's absolute dominance, but I missed a lot of the context. So I'm gonna hand it over to our EU correspondent here.
Yeah, let's do this. I'll just quickly pull up the graphics so I
Mm,
know that I won't stumble over my own thoughts. All right,
okay.
yeah, obviously. The event was won by an Italian trainer named Filbeg, who I think most people who only watch play Pokemon events may not know. This was his fourth event. He previously played in the Turin Special Championship. He played in the
Mhm.
Bologna Special Championship last year. He also competed at the Lille Regional once. He never made a top eight. Um,
Yeah.
but between you and I feel
Mhm.
like the name Philbag, like he's not a stranger to like extremely high performance
Mhm.
because if you remember the Go Battle League arena, that used to
Oh,
be a segment of yours, like a little show on Twitch.television. where you invited the top 8 players of the Go Battle League leaderboards.
Mhm.
You invited me once too, and I actually managed to get cast by House Stark, the one and only, that week. So that's a nice tie-in
Wow.
into our last segment.
Poetic.
Um, but yeah, like so, I'm a one-time Go Battle League weekly Go Battle League Arena weekly winner. Filbeg is a two times Go Battle League Arena weekly winner.
Mhm.
So he actually managed to not only be in the top 8 when you pulled the leaderboard data, but he also managed to defeat the other players within the top 8 in that little tournament setting twice. And I think we also had like a an event one time when it wasn't really down to okay who placed highest on the leaderboard that week, but
Mhm.
just like invited previous winners or something. Maybe that was like
Yeah.
an end of the season thing. And I actually went up against Philbeck first round, and he demolished me. So like he has definitely left his mark both at the GBL leaderboards. Where he has made the front page ever since the season of Go, which was the season after the interlude season in 2022. Ever since he has peaked on the front page of the GBL leaderboards every season. Um, and yeah, so definitely a grassroots hero, a GBL hero, and now also
Mhm.
only the second player to win a regional level event without dropping a single game. It's an 18-0 run, and that has
Insane.
only ever been done by LND Azarajev over in Brazil. I think it was the Porto Alegre regional one season.
Correct.
Um, so yeah, definitely history has been made. Um, and yeah, so Bologna, it was another special event. The European scene likes to close the season with a bunch of special championships,
Mhm.
and we had a good amount of storylines. I'll just keep talking, right? Because
Yeah.
it's difficult for you to follow the entire stream. So one very exciting match going into the second day of the competition that I was looking forward to was between Colin 6 and Kazim 33.
Oh, yeah.
Colin, obviously, we know him as the final boss, as the most decorated European trainer. Now tied with nickname actually, but like with the amount of grand finals that Colin has reached, with the amount of medals he has collected, probably still has the best case for being the greatest European battler of all time.
Mhm.
But he actually came off a little bit of a dry spell where he failed to make a winner's side day 2 for his last 4 consecutive tournaments. He still managed to sneak in into day 2 on the loser's side twice, but a player like Colin, you just expect him to be at the very top every single time, like
Mhm.
the Pockets and Rises and Doombugs in North America. So Colin definitely needed or was looking for another big finish, and he got it in third place, taking out Kazim, who I think is probably one of the, if not the newcomer of this year's European season,
Mhm.
Dortmund regional champion, and also actually the person who at the European International Championship had the most round wins. Like he was tied
Mm.
for most game wins because some fellas get to play best of threes in the grand finals, but because he had such a sick loser bracket run, he managed to actually win 11 rounds at EUIC, which
Ooh.
the biggest tournament of all time. Pretty impressive.
Wow.
And yeah, we essentially had those two titans face off with the better end for Colin. But at the end of the day, um, Kazim just made another sick loser bracket run, and both of them ended with a medal. Colin in third place, Kazim in fourth place. So yeah, who is good enough to come out ahead of Colin and Kazim? One of those people is PvP David in second place. And I personally was very proud of having made 3 grand finals this season. I thought, like, okay, maybe I haven't won a thing this season, but at least I have this going for me, like being
Yeah.
the only European to reach 3 grand finals. Not anymore, because
Oh,
PvP David actually is now the Stuttgart regional champion and the Stockholm and Bologna grand finalists. So one
yeah.
gold, 2 silvers, and I think the only reason why David isn't in that um, same conversation as Colin, who was like a TN Pizza team member of his,
Mhm.
is just because he doesn't get to go to as many regionals because
Agreed.
like the '07 in his name, I think that's his a year of birth. So I feel like he was like just about to turn 18 recently. Maybe he already has done that. Is if not, he's on the cusp. And even though we know that he has very supportive parents, he actually played his dad during the Stockholm regionals, which was very fun to witness. Obviously, like as a minor, you don't get to travel all that much, but
Sure.
whenever he does go to an event, he just really knocks it out of the park. And yeah, he only lost to Filbeg the entire tournament. His winner's set run ended in the winners finals. Then he got knocked down to face Colin Six, both of which actually ran the exact same team.
Mm.
And yeah, that team definitely took inspiration from Big Man Blastoise's heroics in Portland and the championship team from ItsAXN. But yeah, it was
I,
like a lot of
I
you
love
keep
that you use I love you
you
use the word heroic. I'm sorry.
it
Such a good word.
is, isn't it?
The heroic appearance of Big Man Blastoise. I also thought it was funny, like I risked it all, right? I just said that on the Portland cast because it's just so synonymous. That's what everybody memes on. That's what everybody thinks about it. But in the actual clip that was posted online, it just says Big Blastoise. You cut out the man because man is not a Pokemon.
Oh,
um, to brand guidelines. I want
yeah.
to sing the praises a bit more of PvP David because Home Size Henry and I were approached by a very generous sponsor named Rio, and he wanted to run a Spice Ball tournament where you essentially ban all of the best Pokemon that people are using in the Championship Series and in Open Great League in general. There were 69 bans when it was all said and done, so very nice. But PvP David competed in the Spice Bowl. Our top three were Firestar on the loser side bracket, and then Galaxica Bolton and David on that winner side bracket. I believe you competed in the Spice Bowl as well. But essentially, David went to that grand finals. Henry and I live streamed the tournament on YouTube. We covered 10 different matches, including all of our best of fives, being the winners, losers, and grand finals. Um, and David was just insane. I mean, we saw this at Worlds last year where he finished seventh overall. I called him out, him and Beelzebub as being like two young prodigies that are basically the next generation of competitive Pokemon Go players. And I feel like he's just proven that time and time again, and in recent events. Yes, thank you so much to Rio and PV Poke for supporting the Spice Bowl, because to your point earlier, we do need more community led tournaments, and it's just so sick to see David not only appearing in the grand finals here in Bologna, but also winning a specialized meta tournament on the side and winning a fair amount of money
I
by
cannot
doing so.
endorse his usage of Shadow Granbull in that tournament, but
I
other than
know.
that, I will have to agree that this is a fairly impressive feat.
I mean, the finals was literally Shadow Mightyena versus Shadow Granbull. I mean, this was like a crazy tournament experience. But yeah, I wanted to sing David's praises. I think he's incredibly gifted. Colin and Kazim, I'm looking at the bracket. They played twice, and Colin was the only person to beat Kazim in the tournament. Starting off day two, Colin 2-0'd Kazim, sent him down to the loser side bracket. Kazim went through Fazberry, nickname Frika, and then met Colin again, where he lost 1-2 to be eliminated from
Definitely,
the tournament.
definitely, Colin was somebody's final boss this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you as well about Kazim's talent. I think he is the newcomer to the competitive scene. When you look at Filbeg's bracket run, especially day number two, I mean, this is insane. He takes down Nickname in round one, right? Who already won two events this season. He takes down Colin in round two, and then he 3-0s and 3-0s, break out the broom, sweeps PvP David twice in both the looks like the winners finals and grand finals. So Filbeg's record speaks for itself, but he was clearly untouchable no matter who he was playing against.
And one thing that I want to call out in terms of Philbeck's actually gameplay is his ability to make predictions, to build lines and make predictions, because this is not even grand finals. Sometimes we go play by play for the grand finals if we want to
Sure.
call out something. This is winners finals game one. Philbeck leads his Talonflame into Lapras. He immediately swaps Malamar and draws out the Tinkerton. He could have also drawn out the Jumpluff, but the only two answers on the opposing team to a Malamar safe swap would be Pokemon that Talonflame could then easily farm down to get ahead on energy to have a
Mm.
positive matchup into Lapras. Because as soon as you're one turn ahead, you can just beat the Lapras in many scenarios.
Yeah.
It's just like a little more comfortable with Flame Charge as your fast attack, or charge attack rather, but like there's definitely a good win condition there by setting up this farm by safe swapping the one Pokemon that only draws out answers that you can just farm down with your Talonflame. But this was not everything that happened that game, because PvP David, he reads the strategy of like him trying to get the farm done with Talonflame. So he safe swaps, or
Mhm.
like he counter swaps the Tinkaton. He actually goes down a shield even, but then he still very purposefully lets the Malamar get low, but he loses the alignment, and that is because
Mm.
he has the Big Man Blastoise in the back.
Mm.
So no matter what happens, he is going to have a positive matchup against the Talonflame, and he would rather preserve some energy on his Pokemon rather than let the Talonflame get a farm down. So
Mm.
he purposefully loses the middle matchup, gets the Psywave down with the Lapras,
Mm.
and now there's a choice to be made on Filbeg's side, because he could now take the alignment that was handed to him by PvP David and just bring in the Ferret. But then the
Yep.
Ferret would have taken the damage from the Sparkling Aria, would have taken Psywaves, would have just gotten really, really low. So
Yep.
Filbeg makes a read. And he brings his Talonflame into a loaded Lapras after he just did a safe swap that was designed to get his Talonflame away from the Lapras. But he reads that because of the way that David played it, there must be the Blastoise in the back. So he keeps his shields for the Furret, he
Wow.
tanks his Sparkling Aria, gets to a fly, gets some valuable chip damage, and two shield Furret just trailblazes, manages energy perfectly, and takes out the two water types. And
Wow.
multiple adjustments from both sides within the same game, that's just like really high level gameplay that sometimes, especially if you're like not as familiar with those type of mind games, it may just
Mhm.
well go over your head. Like you will be questioning, oh, why did he do it like that? Why didn't he just throw the big move and take switch
Yeah.
advantage? But both players actually had really good ideas in that matchup, but Philbag just was one step ahead after PvP David attempted that 1-5 head play. And I think that says a lot about the level of these competitors. That even after everything's locked in, after the teams are decided, like there's still um, information that is not yet
Mhm.
revealed, but that can be deduced if you just make the right interpretations from the moves your opponent is making.
I'm looking at the team here from David, and if Philbeg is making that kind of read, and you said that he saw the Tinkaton and the Lapras, but had not seen the Blastoise in the back. Of the remaining options, it would be Diggersby, Blastoise, Shadow Jumpluff, or Malamar. If he's only seen two of the six Pokemon, and if you look at those matchups, I mean, worst case for that Furret is probably the Shadow Jumpluff, I would say, especially even energy. But I mean, Furret's got a ton of utility into that. It's just to your point, it's incredible that he was able to kind of like not only recognize the win condition, but also to manage the win condition, send that Talonflame back into the Lapras, and not just immediately, be so far behind from that decision that he's able to close things out and predict the Blastoise in the back. These things are so subtle, and I feel like a lot of players just watching the stream might not realize it. And I know it's like the commentator's job to kind of bring these things to light, to mention them, to talk about them. And we did have a really good crew in Bologna. So I will go back and watch the stream. I'm excited to see if the casters called that out, because we did have some very talented gentlemen this weekend. But yeah, I mean, how subtle, how nuanced. But a person like you, right, who's regularly competing, you see these things and you know exactly what's happening.
But also, you have to be locked in on the day. Like, you need to
Mm-hmm.
be on your A game and just be present enough in that moment to think about all those subtleties
Mm-hmm.
within the few seconds that you get to think about them. So
Hmm.
yeah, like even if you're mechanically gifted and you know what you're doing to make those reads in real time, that really sets the best of the best apart. And it was a really great back and forth to watch. And also, I really want to compliment the team building on the side of Filbeg, because that was
Mm.
not just a like like a cookie cutter team that he got from
No.
somewhere and um just like took it because it did well somewhere else. I really liked his combination of Talonflame and the regular Swampert,
Mm.
because this is not only a pretty decent core into a lot of the meta, but those two Pokemon are also excellent at handling Tinkaton.
Yep.
And once Tinkaton is out of the picture, the Furret has infinite play essentially. Like if you look at the teams finishing in second and third, there's Lapras, there's Diggersby, there's Blastoise, there's
Yep.
the Tinkaton, which you definitely want to scare away, and then there's like Jumpluff and Malamar, which are negative on paper, but against Jumpluff, you just straight up win the two shields. And
Yeah.
against Malamar, if they let the first move go, the sucker punches will add up, especially now that for like, I don't know whether the graphic is exactly correct. I feel like the PvP David team had a Shadow Malamar, but like if the Malamar is Shadow, um, like once you land a move and once you keep two shields, the Furret is just going to
You
sucker punch
just
down.
eat it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So yeah, really enabling this one Pokemon that used to be on Fraud Watch, but I feel like it has done enough now. I think Furret is actually good,
Yeah.
and yeah,
I think
we
so
do
too.
see it. And on like as part of a very similar team on 9 Alfie 2's
Hmm.
line of six in the top eight. Another Italian name that may not have had as much exposure as some of these other trainers, but
Hmm.
that's like the beauty of those regional events, especially like in Southern Europe, where it's maybe not as easy as, for example, in the Netherlands or Belgium or Germany, where a lot of events are in driving range.
Hmm.
So yeah, those trainers definitely appreciate when something happens closer to home. And yeah, we did see some good furred action from the Italians this weekend.
I think it's incredible that Swampert has only won two gold medals. I say only. That's more than I thought it would win this season. But both of its gold medals, excuse me, are both in EU. We had HK
Okay.
Assassin and now Filbeg. Cool stat for you. We've had 14 Swamperts top cut this season, or at least be in top eight. I should be more specific. Be in top eight. Five of those were Shadow. The remainder were regular, and the only two again to hit gold were both European Swamperts, which is I think is pretty funny. Yeah, I agree. The team composition is definitely a little bit strange. If you don't have the graphic in front of you on the YouTube version, I'll just call it out for everyone listening at home. Azumarill, right? The Pokemon's back. Azumarill, Swampert, Furret, Tinkaton, Talonflame, and Shadow Malamar. So even though he had double fairy type Pokemon, no Lapras, no Blastoise, no Jumpluff, no new tech, no Drapion as well, right? The Shadow Malamar is what I kept on seeing being discussed on socials. I saw this in Discord. I saw this on Twitter. I saw a lot of people saying, man, the Shadow Malamar was honestly insane. And the way you're able to play it was really impressive. So yeah, Filbeg with the Shadow Malamar. I think there were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven Shadow Malamars, maybe more if the Dracovic graphic is
Yeah.
incorrect in the top 16, which is pretty good.
One thing that I also want to call out is that, especially with such a shadow Pokemon such as Malamar, you don't you don't want the perfect that you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good,
Mm,
because um, you may not have gotten a rank top 50 Malamar during the Rocket Takeover event recently, but Philbeck actually benefited from the fact that his Malamar was probably a lower rank than PvP David's, or like in terms of like worse PvP IVs, because he did win CMP, and if you lead
yes.
Malamar into Malamar, that is decided by CMP and CMP only if you have the Shadow, because previously with the triple resisted Psywaves, you could easily tank two foul plays and probably not get farmed down immediately. So playing the zeros would always guarantee that the opposing Malamar would be taken down far, far to the right.
Yep.
Whereas now, you just tank one, you're in the yellow, but the next just takes you out.
Yep.
So yeah, like in those situations, like there was one game in the grand finals where it was Malamar
Game
into
two.
Malamar lead.
Game two.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, like from that point onwards, it was really difficult for PvP David to make anything happen
Yep.
because obviously you can't just play this out, you just lose alignment. But then he makes the successful catch on Tinkaton in the back. But
Yep.
that just aligned the Tinkaton to the Swampert. So the Swampert got to be exactly where it wanted to be. And
Exactly.
that is because of that charge attack priority situation in the lead, which really dictated where the games went for Filbeg a lot of the time.
Yeah, and for myself, only watching back the grand finals, when that game kicked off, I remember it very very clearly. When that game kicked off, and PvP David was just straight up avoiding charge attack priority, I said he has to know. He has to know he's not going to win the charge attack priority here, and this is already information that he's working with. So,
I
yeah,
think it
it
was revealed
just
in the winners finals. So yeah, he
exactly.
definitely had the information.
Just with that little bit of context, I was able to tell. Yeah, he already knows he's not going to win the charge tech priority. I've heard a lot of folks playing, attack weighted Malamar in days past. I think Shadow probably still has its own breakpoints and such. It's just such a shame that Shadow Malamar comes out and then Niantic immediately throws all these bug buffs. His Fury Cutter is now insane, and Bug Bite is going to be kind of like Dragon Breath and all this other stuff. I'm just like, man, Shadow
You get to
Malamar
have
had
one tournament and one tournament
yes.
only.
I mean, is there a more like clear example of 5 minutes of fame? That's literally, the phrase. I think
I don't
Malamar
know.
was popular for 5 minutes, or Shadow version, I should
Like
say.
maybe like one of those in between metas where you had Shadow Steelix pop off all of a
True.
sudden, but
Yeah.
yeah, like really, that was a very unfortunate timing of the release. But
Mhm.
also, maybe we're counting it out too soon. Like we don't know how popular all those bug biters will actually end up being on the teams that people will bring in the Delightful Days meta. So I would not transfer my Shadow Malamar just yet. Don't make it into candy and send it to the farm. Instead, just hold on to it, see where the meta goes, and whether you'll find an opening with it, because it is a very potent Pokemon.
I- ZZ, I'm not ever going to tell people to transfer their Shadow Malamar, but I really think you are stretching the truth here when you say that you think its days might not be completely over, especially in the short term. I can't wait to talk about our picks for
You're a
our.
fortress truther. Like I will
You'll be
take your opinion.
surprised. You'll
Oh,
be
okay, okay,
surprised.
okay.
Yes. I'm
I
not a huge fan of Pokemon that have double weaknesses, especially when it looks like the environment is primed for fire type Pokemon. I'll
yeah,
just say
that is
that for
fair.
now.
That is
Um,
fair.
but yeah,
Again, one instance where we really want to get into the new meta discussions,
I
but
know we're like
there's
raring to
there's
go.
still there's still some ground to cover.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah, Bologna also the very last event of the European circuit, which doesn't mean it's the last time Europeans will earn championship points, but
Mhm.
for now, PvP David and Kazim, I think if my calculations are correct, they should jump ahead of Koifje and Tomahawk UK in the travel award race.
Mhm.
But we know that Tomahawk is going to NAIC as a competitor,
Yep.
and I think Marcus Asius Aurelius is also going to be in New Orleans to maybe get some more points to jump into that top eight. So nobody's safe just yet. But yeah, also I do want them to introduce a shower with cold water for Marcus every time in a Azumarill wins a tournament. Because I feel like wherever he goes, he's just followed by that big bunny that just keeps on winning and winning.
Yeah, it's like the allegory for depression when that one person in the room always has a rain cloud above them. I feel like I feel like
It's just
Marcus is
Azu using Hydro Pump every
walking
time. Yep.
around and there's just an Azu bubbling on top of his head the whole time, like, hey everyone, how are you doing? And you can't help but look at the
Uh,
Azumarill that's just like looming over him.
I want an
No,
artist's interpretation of that now.
well, the one thing I wish we could have is honestly a Inadequance and Arceus Aurelius rematch, because just seeing the banter on stage at EUIC this season,
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, I wish we had a hot mic for that. I wish we could hear what they were saying, because they were yapping the whole
Yeah.
series, man, back and forth, back and forth.
they're the type for that for sure.
Yeah, like
Uh,
asking each other, is this a bait? Should I shield this? Or what do you
and
have in
it
the
ended
bag?
so poetically with the Aquatail throne when the crunch was available. Really like what we used to call Pega plays back when CCO streams were still a thing.
I know. It's
Um,
like it's like if you're Marcus and you have two paths to choose from and there's like a concrete divider in the middle, you can either go left and throw the crunch or you can go right and try to farm down. He walked like right into the divider. Boom, Aquatail, do nothing and still not be able to win the game. So that was very tough for him. And I felt a bit sad in the moment. I still feel a little sad. I'm ready for his redemption. I want Marcus to redeem
100%.
himself.
Like he's not the type to give up, which like
Yeah.
definitely fair play to him for being somebody who like maybe not learns from his mistakes, but
Hmm.
really takes his mistakes really well, just goes again and excels again because
You
he
I know
like
you're giving him compliments and I hear what you're
yes, yes,
saying,
yes.
but it's so funny that you're like, he doesn't learn from his mistakes. All right.
Yeah.
He's just not that kind of person.
He knows how I mean it. He knows how I mean it,
I
right?
know, I
Like
know, I know.
I
I'm
I
just
need to
giving
be a
you a
little
hard time.
bit backhanded about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he always has those types of moments. But he'd be unstoppable if he didn't have them, right? Because
Yes.
he's
Yes, he
still one of the
would.
best in Europe and still in that travel race, and for a reason.
Yes, he would. And I wish you would make more content. Marcus, if you're listening, please make YouTube videos again.
Yeah, I
Those
miss
were
his YouTube
so
video
good.
era. I thought that was really exciting and like it was like different because it was not just
Yes.
like people talking about like teams or the meta. It was
Yeah.
also like about okay, who are my top 10 favorites to win worlds? Like that's like
Yeah.
exciting. That creates like some gossip and it's not like putting
Exactly.
anyone down. It's just like highlighting people within the community who have done really well. I really like that.
Exactly. All right, Marcus, you have a manifesto from ZZ and I. You have to make content again. I hope you understand if you're listening. Um, I wanted to mention just honorable mention, I guess I should say, to 23 EJB for top cutting over in Bologna. He did it with a wacky team. He's got Dusclops, Morpeko, and Shadow Kanto Marowak. EJ, I don't know what you were cooking, but it was great. I owe you a Guinness next time I see you. And also Withered. I thought Withered has been a rising star this entire season. Seeing them again here with Big Man Blastoise and Shadow Gator in Top Cut was really cool. So I'm excited to see what both of those trainers do in their next competition.
100%. Yeah. Winner's side day two for Withered as well. And yeah, one of the youngest top trainers in the EU region. So we'll definitely
Mm,
can definitely count on him to just grow and grow further, probably in height too, but also as a competitor.
agreed. Agreed. That next generation, I'm telling you, ZZ, we're aging out, man. We got to make room for the Bielsa
Yeah.
boys and the
I
PvP
just
Davids and the Withereds.
like I once saw like a post on Twitter about who the oldest player to ever win a regional competition has been. And I don't know whether the data is correct, but I think somebody mentioned that Kieng was like 32 at time of his
Yeah.
championship win. And I'm
Hmm.
31 now, so the clock is
Ooh.
ticking. If I want a second championship title, it needs to come quickly. Um,
That's a great post, but I prefer the post about which trainers have a job and are able to also win a tournament. That's honestly really funny.
as somebody who does have a full-time job, it's it's a hindrance. It's not
Yeah,
easy, but I do also believe that out of those four potential reasons why one would not have the same would not be like would like struggle at a regional competition, so to speak. Like having a kid or having kids is probably the most demanding out of all of them.
agreed.
Um, so I'm definitely privileged in that I do not have to take care of another human being. Just I gotta get myself to work, and
Yeah,
that's all I really have to think
not
of.
not not ZZ 2.0 or ZZ Mini.
Nah, thankfully
What?
not.
So I don't know if I should ask you this. I think in order to keep the theme going, your hypothetical child's name would have to be Dino, I believe. To
It
keep the
is
theme
true.
going.
It is true.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's all I have to say about Bologna. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you wanted to add. Very high level EU competition. I cannot wait to watch back the VOD. Because we're trying to fit in this episode and also another episode next week, we picked Sunday to record. So I'm not my usual studious type, at least when it comes to Bologna. So I appreciate you carrying the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of Bologna really well, and yeah, it was definitely a great competition to watch. Big congrats to Filbeg for landing that big title. It's always nice if you just compete at one tournament a season and still manage to clutch your Worlds invite, and I really hope that we see him in Anaheim.
Me as well. I'm excited to talk about our last competition that happened over the past weekend. This was a 1-day event, and we're heading back down to South Africa, where there was a 200% increase in the number of players attending.
The
We
scene
had
is growing.
the scene is growing, and I think it's important also that we nurture smaller scenes, scenes that need to build more awareness, to include more players, to become more notable. We had the Durban Special Championship in South Africa. PvP Steve was making the trek again to South Africa, and we also had DeBilly Bravebird from the US. But even more importantly than that, we had our first South African trainer win a championship series event and qualify for the World Championship. So before we talk about anything to do with the tournament, I want to shout out to Dracoviz for putting together the graphics per usual, and also for PvP Steve for getting the footage together, for publishing a YouTube video about it. I thought about it, ZZ, and honestly, like without Steve, we'd have no coverage of the Australian events. We'd have no coverage of the South African events. We would lack a ton of coverage when it comes to the TPC events, whether it's Thailand, Taiwan, any of the playoffs. We would be missing a lot of what we want to talk about. So, Steve, I know doesn't have the biggest channel. If I could, I would magically give him 10 times the amount of views because he definitely deserves it and he puts in a
Yeah,
ton of work.
he
So
is
I'm grateful to
definitely
you,
one
Steve.
of one of the MVPs and probably the Australian MVP alongside people like Debbie Pebble who always help out a lot.
Yep.
But yeah, like I was also so like this is okay. We'll get to the finals and the champion in a bit, but the fact that PvP Steve finished third at this competition also means that he is very likely, if we just assume that NAIC will not have any surprises in store, is going to qualify for Worlds in the Oceanic region, which has 10 spots for Worlds qualification.
Yep.
How do you feel about that personally, Speedy? Because I feel like this is like a topic that you can have opinions on.
I mean, I don't have any problem with it. I mean, if regardless of whether or not Steve was a creator, I feel like you compete in the region where you live or where you know are native to or whatever, and I feel like you just do your best. And I don't think that like the circumstances of the region where you are should dictate whether or not you're worthy of a championship spot. We talked about this I talked about this with my fellow co-casters kind of in private at past worlds, especially 22 and 23, when, you know, trainers that maybe didn't win big events or, you know, just farm locals or whatever it might be. Well, we didn't have locals back in 22 and 23. I should say trainers that won smaller events that attended worlds. And some people were like upset about this. Some people in NA or EU were calling them out for that. Um, Honestly, if they're not good, then just beat them at Worlds and just prove it. I don't understand what the problem is, but I don't know
Yeah.
if your opinion is different.
So, like that angle, I'm 100% in agreement with you that just because the event is small doesn't mean there shouldn't be anything awarded for it. I think what this does do is that it highlights a little bit of an issue with the change that was made to the world's qualification method going into the 2025 season,
Mhm.
where now a player doesn't need to essentially just meet a threshold of points to qualify for worlds, but instead, all the competitors are competing against each other, so to speak. So
Sure.
PvP Steve being able to attend Worlds as a competitor means that another Oceanic competitor will not be able to
Mm.
attend Worlds. And I think in this very specific instance. Um, it is Yusei Furo, who is like content creator from New Zealand, really good
Yeah.
battler, but also somebody who I think has indicated that he wouldn't want to travel to Anaheim anyway because it's like difficult with work or something.
Yeah.
So actually, there's nothing lost there, and this really makes it so that I can be as happy for Steve as I want to be because I do like the guy, and I'm really glad that he did so well for himself, and he also essentially by giving us that regional coverage from Australia, robbed himself of the opportunity to score points in his home region. So I think it's just fair that he gets to have a makeup event like that. And
Good point.
like if you
Great
put in the
point.
work to travel, like that should be rewarded in some capacity also. I just feel as if I don't know whether there'll be a rethinking for the upcoming um, play Pokemon Championship season,
Hmm.
but I think a lot of people don't really like the fixed player threshold where it's only top 50, top 70, top 75,
Mm,
top 10 because um like you don't know whether everybody really gets to compete on an even footing. And in this specific instance, it doesn't really like there's no it's a victimless crime, so to speak. It's not even a crime, but it's just like an
yeah.
unfortunate
I
circumstance of the system.
yeah.
And I get that they want to reduce numbers or at least more actively be able to manage numbers because they saw the explosion with the TCG and VGC, like some moderate growth with Go, and they want to be able that they can service all the competitors at Worlds. But I feel like just make a little bit of a more ambitious threshold for some regions, like so that people that really want to get to Worlds can really grind for that, and people that just have to take the opportunity that are presented to them aren't really like prized out by people that they then have to actively compete against because there's an artificial scarcity of spots.
I see what you're saying. So maybe for Oceania and Middle East South Africa or Mesa, maybe those two regions should allow more trainers to qualify. Maybe it should be top 20. Is that what you're getting at? Or
Um, Either something like that, or which is like probably more in line with what I was actually thinking.
mm,
Um, just try and go back to okay, you have to be this tall to enter. You have to get this many championship points to qualify for worlds. And if you want, if you want slightly fewer people from certain regions, just make it like slightly more difficult. Even though I don't even believe that the
mm,
numbers will change that much this season.
okay.
But I feel like it's nice to really be certain that you reach your target and then you actually get to go. Because in this
Mm,
instance, it was okay, the last event in my home region has wrapped up. I'm top 10. I could go to Worlds and compete. And then far, far away on another continent, another event happens and somebody earns points for my rating zone. Like in this
I see.
specific instance, there was no harm done, but I still feel as if the principle is something that needs to be considered when making the decisions as to how to structure the qualification for future seasons.
Okay, I understand. I understand what you're getting at. So maybe for those smaller regions, you pivot back to the threshold metric, where as long as you're above 500 points or 700 or whatever, you've qualified. And then it doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you stand on the leaderboard because you've met the threshold. So it's threshold and not cutoff, so to speak.
I like that, especially for
Okay.
if you look at Australia, for example, they get three regionals. The best finish limit, so the amount of regionals or ICs that count towards your championship points total, is five. So if
Mm,
somebody just has the money or the opportunity to travel abroad and score points there, they will immediately lap the competition at home that aren't able to travel abroad because they only get three events, right? And especially in a region like Australia, that can spiral into okay, I get a travel award for this IC, I get a
yeah.
travel award for that IC, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit of an infinite money glitch, or like at least an infinite I get compensated for spending money on those experiences glitch.
Sure.
And so yeah, I feel like maybe we keep the larger regions with a more competitive opportunity at the current system, but we could go back to a championship point threshold system for Australia, which doesn't have 5 regionals.
Interesting point. I like the way you think. If anyone from TPCI is listening to this, please consider this as a rule update. I know 2026 is probably already settled, but maybe 2027, because this goes back to what ZZ and I have talked about before. It's just that we feel these smaller regions need to be nurtured so that they can grow, and I feel like it would be such a relief for these players to be able to just get the amount of points that they need and then not worry about the world's qualification after that and just be able to lock in their invite. They have a clear goal. They don't have to just grind all season and hope that somebody from, doesn't travel outside of region, scoop up a bunch of points and then come back and kick them out of the threshold. Yeah. Or out of the cutoff, I should say. Yeah, I believe the threshold number would be actually really good for this group. So yeah, very well thought out argument. You won me over. I'm gonna agree with you on that one.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, but so in this competition, we did have 8 trainers total. Steve from Australia, Billy traveled from the U.S., and it looks like Detective August. I believe that is a German flag, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, and Detective August actually competed in the previous South African regional as well, and I think that was the story of the trainer who actually brought their kids to I think,
Yes.
a VGC competition.
Yep.
So definitely a frequent traveler and likes to help out with the Go numbers as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, thank you, Detective August, because otherwise, a 7-person tournament would have been a little bit strange in terms of how the bracket would have functioned or if it would have fired at all, right? But yeah, this was a fun competition. Steve did a great job covering some of the matches. I believe in his video he did his round one, or no, sorry, he covered all of Diveshan's games. So we have round one, Diveshan versus Detective August. Then we have Diveshan taking on, I believe this is Yune. I believe is the name Yune Gasa. I'm trying to read the small text and also reference Yuno Gasai, who I believe finished within top 6. That is. Next round, winners finals versus Billy the Brave Bird, and then grand finals where he took on Billy again. I actually reached out to Billy because I thought he was going to Portland, and I said, "Hey, if you're around this weekend, we should hang out." Very very cool guy, part of the SoCal Swablues. Really appreciate Billy a lot. And he said, "No, I'm actually going to South Africa." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I'm flying from I guess LA to South Africa to go compete, and I hope it goes well." And he did very well, finishing second overall. That grand finals was a lot of fun to watch as well. I believe it went to game 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
There
mean,
was also a Fury category support on his team, like like looking
prescient.
like almost, yeah, exactly, like predicting what the future would be.
Yeah. Wow. Prescient. This is a fun word. Having or showing knowledge of events before they take place. And I'm proud of myself that I found the word I wanted and not some other random word. But yeah, Fury Cutter Glycopod. What a brilliant call. Um, so teams, it looks like the runner up for the tournament and Billy the Brave Bird was running Shadow for Alligator, Diggersby, Tinkaton, Unova Stunfisk. I'm a big fan of the pancake. Happy to see it getting another silver medal. Shadow Jumpluff and Fury Cutter Glycopod. Diveshan was running for Alligator, Claydol, Tinkaton, Shadow Drapian, Shadow Jumpluff, and Furret. Definitely something we more expect to see. That sounds like a more standard meta team. Maybe the Claydol's a little spicy. Maybe the Feraligatr is a little unusual. But the core 4 of Tinkaton, Shadow Drappy, and Shadow Jumpluff and Furret, very, very solid. And I think he played Furret quite a bit. He brought it all
Yeah,
5 games in the grand finals, and it was very good for him.
he was definitely leaning on it a good amount. So again, another like another data point that for it is off Fraud Watch officially.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I also want to shout out the good people at Dracovis for putting together a little bit of a showcase for the best or some of the notable trainers from the African continent.
Mm.
And I think they did mention Diveshan as well as like one of the rising stars. So seeing that translate to a championship title was fun to see.
Yeah, you're right. They did a whole like blog post on South African trainers. That was really cool, and I'm glad they did that. Dracoviz, please include more pictures next time. I actually want to see the faces of these players. I know there's a lot of text, and I appreciate the work you did, but I want to see. I want to see what these players look like. So if I catch them at Worlds or at another event, I can say, "Oh, hey, you're Diveshan, right? I recognize you." Um, this was a fun event. It looks like there was quite a bit of lag at the event. I did notice in the recordings that Steve posted that, especially in the winners finals, grand finals, it looked a little bit choppy at times. So kudos to the players for playing through that kind of annoyance. It can definitely rattle you if you're not ready for it. Billy had some crazy wins because essentially the way the grand finals started, it was 2-0 Divishon. He was on the doorstep of winning the tournament, and then Billy struck back with two victories in a row to tie up the series. Essentially came down to game five, where Divishon led for Alligator into Diggersby. His full team was for Alligator, Tinkaton, and Furret, and he took on Diggersby, Glycopod, and Shadow Jumpluff. Billy pivoted to that Diggersby, or excuse me, he pivoted out of Diggersby into the Glycopod, tried to make something happen, but ultimately the knockout blows, EZ, was delivered by Divishon's Furret into that opposing Diggersby. So I agree with you. Officially off Fraud Watch, Furret is the real deal. Yeah. Fun tournament. Top eight, we had a Caterpie. What the heck? Duty with the Caterpie, Haunter, Slowbro core. Man, that's awesome.
Definitely a team that's leaning more on the fun side of things. So there are some real Pokemon on there, like the Altari and the Wigglytuff, but
Yeah.
Cowboy Hat Caterpie, please, is all I can say on that.
I really appreciate that Mike Nerd Law. He's commented that on basically every post Pokemon Go has ever published, and he's amassed a ton of followers by doing that, which is
Yeah,
honestly like really funny.
I really think they need to introduce Cowboy Hat Caterpie for the 10-year anniversary. I feel like at this
Oh,
point, it would be a crowd pleaser.
he's so consistent, right? You gotta at least give in and just admire the persistence, I would say. Durban special event was a lot of fun. Again, thank you to PvP Steve for publishing the footage. If you'd like to watch his coverage of it, of Divishon's run, you can check out his channel, PvP Steve, on YouTube. And yeah, congratulations on qualifying for World, Steve, and hope to see you perform well there. Divishon as well. I'm excited to see our first South African trainer compete at Worlds. That's going to be history in the making. And yeah, I don't know if I have too much to add to Durban, just because we didn't have a stream for it.
Yeah, I also would finally allow ourselves to move on to the move update discussion
Let's
because
go.
there's quite a bit to talk about actually, which is not really what we expected this time of year.
So, for those of you who do not know, the Delightful Days season update was published by Niantic shortly after the Portland regionals. I mean, come on, we could have totally revealed that on stream in Portland, but we didn't get to. But anyway, it's on the website. Um, and there are a ton of updates. It seems like Bug is getting a massive buff. Bug Bite, Fury Cutter, both really, really good. There's like slight touches to Ember. Wrap has a new effect, which effectively reduces the opponent's defense by one stage, guaranteed. So I'm hearing whispers of Lickitung and Dragonair coming back. I don't know how true that will be. PvPoke published his rankings, and Fortress is sitting at number 2 overall. So we really could be living in a world where Fortress, Lapras, and Blastoise are competing for the World Championships in a few months. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, like you do have a history with Fortress. I guess it was a real hero during the Sylph days, and now it's just meta apparently, given the um, preliminary PvPoke rankings for the new season,
Yeah.
with Bugbite getting the power increase from 3 to 4 per Bugbite, which is very strong on a one-turn fast attack like
Mhm.
Bugbite. It makes it a Dragon Breath clone. Dragon Breath, famously one of the most suppressive fast attacks in the game. And now you have that on a Pokemon with for its profile for its Fortress profile,
Yeah.
Fortress, um, where you have the Steel subtyping and like Bug actually pairing quite well with it. Like you definitely have that 4 times weakness to fire, but You also eliminate the ground weakness. You eliminate the flying weakness from the bug
Hmm.
type. So there's a lot of more, like a lot of extra neutrality from that type combination that you gain, and obviously access to Rock Tomb, like Fortress, may just be the biggest name on this new update. Probably a real meta contender, and likely the main reason why everybody's claiming that Malamar's days are over.
Yeah, I think when you look at Dragon Breath clone Bug Bite Fortress, you're basically looking at Fortress spinning up to a hibachi bar and just eating the squid just in one bite, just absolutely annihilating it. So I don't know. I think that Shadow Malamar's days were short lived and they will not be returning anytime soon. I plugged in my headphones. That's why I'm like kind of slouched over to the side. They were running low on battery. So for this segment, this is again our first impressions. ZZ and I are just kind of going off feel, what we see in the rankings, what we see in the updates. We're going to learn a lot more when it comes to practice tournaments, scrims, when the season update rolls out on the 4th of June, and also, of course, when we get to NAIC. But for now, I've got 3 newcomers, which are Pokemon that I think have just shot up the rankings, are going to be suddenly very good. I've got 3 mainstays, which are Pokemon that have been meta staples the past 3 to 6 months that I think are not going anywhere. If anything, they're getting even stronger given the update. And then I have 3 has-beens, Pokemon that were strong, that looked good, but are just going to get totally wiped out by this meta change. And then as a bonus part, I've got some honorable mentions, Pokemon that I are kind of like wild cards. I don't know if they're going to be good, but they have potential. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go back and forth?
Yeah, I like a good back and forth. Like, we move through each category. Everybody reveals one at a time, and
Okay.
we'll discuss whether we agree, whether we disagree. I think that will be fun.
All right. I'm going to kick things off here. I'm going to lead with a very strong pick. Believe it or not, CZ, I actually agree with your brother, Jonkus. I think that Dedenne is going to be a threat in this meta. You're electric, you're fairy. Yes, you don't want to see poison or ground, but my goodness, do you destroy the flying types, the water types, a lot of the bug types as well, because fairy does resist bug. I mean, I think Dedenne with the newly buffed parabolic charge is going to be a threat.
I will read out my notes verbatim. Dedenne, maybe? I'm very interested. Like, I
Nice.
love my electric types, and even though I originally wasn't like too big on some of those stat modifying moves for Pokemon that don't have that many stats to work with anyway, I just like looked at the raw numbers, and if you get
Mhm.
like the main reason why Dedenne is going to be good is because they made the move Parabolic Charge both cheaper, and they guaranteed a 100%, which is what guaranteeing is, a defense buff to yourself. Um,
Well, to be
so
fair, it could be a guaranteed like 25% defense increase, which is kind of what Skull Bash is. So I get your point. You don't have to
like
backtrack.
I'm just meaning that I think it's like one stage, right? Like the
Yeah.
defense isn't increasing by 100%. It's like 100% likely that you get the defense buff.
Okay.
So it's like plus one stage, but you get there so fast now because if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be straight fives with Thundershock to the parabolic charge, which
Yep.
means 10 turns and your defense is raised. And oh boy, does Dedenne need that, because it is not a tanky Pokemon. It is a little less squishy than the similarly sized what's it called, Morpeko. Like that is a lot
Yeah.
more attack weighted, a lot more aggressive.
Mhm.
But Dedenne is still very middle of the road, or rather a little below average even. So it definitely will benefit a lot from that defense boost. And it is not the only Pokemon that will be able to use the new Parabolic Charge. There's Heliolisk as an option, which is interesting because it does have that normal subtyping. So
Yeah.
if you see a lot of ghost types in the meta, maybe Heliolisk could be worth a shot. It does get access to a good amount of coverage moves as well. Or you could go for the bulkiest of the parabolic charge users, which is Bellybolt. But
Yeah.
either you have to sacrifice a little bit of pacing for the Sucker Punch non-stab fast attack coverage, or you just play a triple electric moveset with Thundershock, Parabolic Charge, and Zap Cannon,
No
which
coverage.
you can do, but you do open yourself up to RPS a good amount. Whereas the Dene, like it hasn't, it's not the inventor of coverage, but it does have access to stab play rough, which is not a
Yes.
bad move. So I think the Dene may be slightly preferred just because it's not as one dimensional.
Agreed. Wow. So already we're in alignment on Dedenne. I'm curious, was that one of your newcomer picks, or was that just an
It was
honorable mention?
like my categories are three winners buffed,
Hmm.
three winners better environment, which is essentially the mainstays Pokemon that are good, are getting better because of how the meta changed, and then three losers because of the changed environment. Like there has been one single nerf. I don't think it's going to be impactful. The crunch debuff chance has been decreased likely
Ah,
very slightly. Essentially it was another season of all buffs. I guess the nerfs will be coming after Worlds. So this is what we're working with. But I can present you one winner that I believe is actually going to play a fairly decent role in the next season. And that Pokemon,
Mariana.
Mariana, I think, was a good call, actually. I think Palasha brought it to Bologna. She didn't quite make it work, but it looked good. It just like always got aligned to the one Pokemon that it didn't want to see. But
Ah, rough.
um I still think like right now, Machina probably has some niche, but no, it is a Pokemon that is amongst the Fury Cutter users. Um, we used to see a lot of it. We don't see any of them anymore. It's infamously neutral. It has a
Ah, I know who you're talking
fantastic
about.
type combination. It has very bad charge attacks, but it may not mind. It is Gligar.
Oh
I think
God.
Fury Cutter Gligar is actually going to be a meta threat. It's not going to be as much of a staple as it used to be, but I think it will be solidly among the like top 15 to 20 Pokemon that you will need to consider when building your team. It's not something that you can ignore. And it is something that fills roles that are pretty difficult to fill because ground types, we will talk about that in the future probably as well, that some of the ground types have like changed utility now. Um, and also flying types, where you only really saw Pokemon that weren't really using their flying typing to
Mhm.
they were not really like there's no flying fast attacks anymore. Talonflame is
Yeah.
just doing fire damage, and
Yeah.
like Jumpluff obviously loves the double flying moveset now, but that thing is just what we have as a grass type. So like the real genuine flyers are few and far between. And I think Gligar, well, obviously with its subtyping being a little bit of a weirdo as far as flyers go as well, um, it will allow people to explore new team building options again because it has like nice roll compression. You can have two things in one, and even if your charge moves are just not that great, um, with such a good fast attack, I think it's worth consideration.
Gligar is absolutely a weirdo. I think that's probably the perfect word for that Pokemon. Yeah, Gligar to me is like a mosquito in your bedroom at night. You're trying to sleep and it's just buzzing around. It's so annoying. You know that it's there, and you have to respect it because if it does bite you, then it's obviously super annoying to deal with. And I think that Gligar is definitely going to come back. The roll compression of both flying and ground is just so broken. It's so busted. You're able to beat things like poisons and steels, which a flying type shouldn't do, and then you're able to beat grass and fighters, which a ground type likely shouldn't do. So it's just such a weird, puzzling Pokemon. I think weirdo is honestly the perfect word. I agree with you. I think Fury Cutter Gligar is coming right back into the meta. It's going to be something that people scrim with quite a bit, and I fully expect to see it at NAIC. Um, I'm going to go with another Fury Cutter. This is a Pokemon that I technically should not call this a newcomer because it has been in the meta for quite a while, but I think it's going to reach a new level of potency, and that's going to be Golisopod with Fury Cutter because I think having the one turn fast attack that's just more maneuverable, you're going to gain stab on it. It generates energy at the same rate as Shadow Claw. It's just broken up into one turn instead of two turns. I think Golisopod is going to be fierce, especially when you consider that ground has been very prominent in the meta. Water and bug coverage is really stellar due to the lack of electric types in the meta right now, and also flyers, as you just mentioned. Yeah, Glycopod's going to be a threat. I think we're going to see it quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't have it on my list just because of one reason and one reason alone, which is that I do expect a little bit of an overcorrection, at least for NAIC, where people will want to bring a bunch of Pokemon that may resist bug type damage, which might not be the strongest Pokemon in a vacuum, or when the meta
Mhm.
has actually like properly shaken out a couple of weeks in. But I don't think people are heading into NAIC wanting to be weak to the Fury Cutter users, weak to the Bug Bite users. Excuse me. So I
Mhm.
think that Golisopod could struggle if there are more ghost types, more fighting types, more fairy types, and more steel types, all of which I can see an argument for. Um, where sometimes you may wish you still had the Shadow Claw. But
Fair.
obviously, like having what is essentially the bug version of Stab Psywave is going to make Golisopod a beast in neutral matchups. So, like, I think it's definitely an improvement for it. I just wonder whether the meta is going to be a little bit more hostile towards it than it may be. Okay, so my take is Golisopod will not do fantastic at NAIC,
Mhm.
but it will have more than just a moment. It will be a staple at Worlds. I think we'll get there eventually.
I'll take it. I agree. All right.
All right. I guess I have another Pokemon to unveil. There's one more left, and like I guess like I'll put the one in honorable mentions. I didn't want to just say Fortress because that's so obvious. It's like saying Lapras the last time we had a move update. Um, I think if you're not a Fortress guy, and especially if you expect people to answer the bug type damage source,
Mhm.
why not try Shadow Scissor? Because that thing obviously is very frail, but it gets access to the newly buffed Bullet Punch.
Yep.
Bullet Punch now is equivalent to Old Counter or current Sucker Punch, which is essentially the best fast attack in the game because it's 2 turns, it's very high damage, and it still has such a nice pacing to its cheap charge attacks with generating 7 energy per bullet punch, meaning
Mhm.
it's only 5 bullet punches into a Night Slash. Shadow Scissor has the opportunity to boost its attack further by Trailblazing. Like, that's a
Yep.
guaranteed buff. It's coverage against water types. And, like, right now, PvPoke already has ranked it fairly highly, which is, like, within
Yeah.
the, like, top 40 or 50. But
Mhm.
PvPoke uses the 0 and 1 shield scenarios for its rankings and averages those out, kind of. But Scizor is a Pokemon that you probably want to two shield. So its best shielding scenario isn't reflected in the rankings yet.
Mm.
And I think if somebody was to build around Scizor, pair it up with some bulkier stuff that covers its weakness as well, I think Shadow Scissor is capable of, like, if we had more events, I would be a little more bold and say, okay, it could take a medal, it could maybe take a championship. I think it can take a top 16 or like maybe multiple top 16s even at NEIC and Worlds.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. I'm looking at the simulations here. I put it into a matrix and I looked at the two shield scenario with the new season update. There's some tough losses. For example, Araquanid is very dominant for that Pokemon. Gastrodon with Mud Slap is very good. But then you consider that, man, if I just land a Trailblaze, I basically one shot Gastrodon. So I don't know how much credence you can put into that simulation. And then, of course, the toughest loss is going to be something like a Talonflame. But in the two shields, Shadow Scizor appears to be 28 victories, 19 losses, and one tie, with an average rating of 561. This looks like a switch advantage Pokemon. You safe switch it if you lose lead, and you just bullet punch the crap out of whatever you come up against. Night Slashing, X Scissor, Trailblaze, whatever you prefer, and if you just wear down the opponent. If they don't have a hard answer, like if there's no Talonflame, no Typhlosion on the
Exactly.
opposing team, easiest safe swap
As
ever.
long as you're in a neutral position where the
Yes.
opponent doesn't have a type advantage of some sort over you,
Yep.
just the combination of Shadow Boost, excellent fast attack, and consistent way of boosting is going to allow you to power through.
Interesting. Interesting. That was not on my radar, but I do think I might be a Scizor
Don't make
believer
it
now.
interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody can look at like the top PV Pokemon and will probably be able to make a good case for them. But I thought this may be a little bit of a sleeper.
Well, my final pick is a Pokemon that actually has 29 victories in the one shield against the Championship Series meta, and it is a grass poison, not named
Oh,
Venusaur.
oh, I
I
see
hate
where
it.
you're getting at.
I hate it to death, but I think the potted plant Victory Bell with the newly buffed acid is actually going to be a force. I mean, if our predictions are right, because you and I have talked about this, if our predictions are correct, we think that acid is going to be akin to like a powder snow clone, something like that. Um, it's actually going to be very good, and it does get stab on it as well. And then you pair that with Leaf Blade, which is a low energy charge attack. You could run Acid Spray for the memes or Leaf Tornado if you're Galaxy Bolton, but you probably want to put it with Sludge Bomb. So Sludge Bomb, Leaf Blade, Stab on all three of your attacks, plus above average bulk and a good typing that is has got tons of targets. I think Shadow Victory Bell might be a meta play as well.
I actually wholeheartedly agree. And the
Yeah.
only reason why I didn't put an acid user myself is because we don't know the final stats yet. I think
Ah,
they've only changed the energy parameter and they haven't revealed to what yet. But I think they already, like acid already does the same amount of damage as the move Shadow Claw, right? So if it only also
ah,
does the same, generates the same amount of energy as Shadow Claw, it's going to be one of the strongest fast attacks in the game. Obviously, Poison not the most potent offensive typing. You have coverage against Grass, you have coverage against Fairy, but most of the other types don't really mind Poison as much.
yeah.
But still, it has fantastic synergy with the very cheap Leaf Blade on Victreebel. And I also believe that um, Pokemon such as Credilli, which probably has seen an environmental nerf with what
Mm,
else has become stronger and more popular this season, could still be overall a better Pokemon if
mm,
Acid now allows it to maybe need one less charge attack to take out some targets, just because now you have better fast attack pressure than you previously had with Bullet Seed. Again, this is all
mm.
hinging on them actually making it so that Acid generates H8 energy per acid, so
Yeah.
4 energy per turn. But that could make Victory Bell interesting. That could make Tentacruel interesting. That could make Credilli more interesting.
Yeah.
And one thing that I want to be good, I don't know whether it will be good, but if Dragalge is good,
Oh,
if it stands the practice test, I will
please.
consider to bring that to an event because Dragalge is such a cool Pokemon.
It's so sick. It's honestly one of the coolest Pokemon. I've tried to play it over the seasons just because it's such a badass Pokemon, and when it works, it's really fun. But a lot of the time, it doesn't work so well. So, being weak to both ice and ground is pretty tough in the current meta. But here we are. All right, interesting. Cradilly. I think if I'm being reasonable, I think you're probably right. Just because rock is such a good offensive typing, especially when you're expecting more bugs. You already have ice types in the meta. You already have flying types in the meta. Rock is really, really well positioned. So acid will probably help, even though it's not stab. I think it'll be
I
viable.
think it would also like change the jump love matchup in a way that a
Ah,
grass that beats
true.
other grasses may no longer be just jump love because
Oh,
the acid pressure would be real.
wow. I didn't think of that. I think you're right. Are you ready to move on to our mainstays or our meta winners that are going to stick
Yes,
around?
please.
All right. You started us last time. Or no, I started us last time. Do you want to start us this
I can
time?
take the lead.
All right.
So
Go ahead.
the first Pokemon that I think is going to become a little better, also because of um maybe its competitors for the role that it would take on being a little less good, would be Diggersby. Because that Pokemon is a ground type that can fight back against flying types such as Gligar a little better than a Mudslapper would be able to. It has Fire Punch coverage for the Fortress that we are likely going to see.
Yep.
And also, um, if we expect bugs to be prevalent or bug type damage to be prevalent, that will push dark types out of the meta. It will probably lead to more ghost types because not only do they not have to fear dark anymore, but they also resist bug. And many
Mhm.
ghost types really don't want to see a normal type such as Diggersby. Obviously, there's
Correct.
exceptions like Dusclops with its Ice
Ice
Punch, but
Punch.
I think Diggersby, for the most part, especially with how good it already is, and like with its neutral bulk, with its decent attacks, I think it's going to be a top 5 Pokemon in the upcoming meta.
Yeah. So in my notes, I also have Diggersby as my mainstays, and I just have no additional notes. Just Diggersby,
Diggersby,
and
no notes. I'll
and
take
I,
it.
no notes. And I think you explained it beautifully. Yeah, it's got such good roll compression. It's such a bulky Pokemon. Fire Punch for all the bugs is so good, and then you have Scorching Sands to beat anything that's poison or steel. Diggersby's not going anywhere, so I think trainers need to prepare for that. Maybe more than they should prepare for other mud slappers, which we'll get to that soon as well. So we share a pick in Diggersby. My next pick is actually another ground type. I think that Unova Stunfisk is going to gain a ton of targets, massive number of targets. Electric and ground is such a good combination when you've got bugs, whether they're bug steals like Fortress and Scizor, or you've got um, Golisopod, which is water bug, or you've got Talonflame becoming more notable. I think that Unova Stunfisk has a massive amount of targets, and I think the rise in bugs is going to push the Mudslappers a little bit lower in usage, just opening the door wide open for Unova Stunfisk.
I agree. I think it's going to become a little safer. It's becoming better positioned than some of the Pokemon that will compete for its role. And also, um, like if there's Pokemon such as Dedenne that rise
Yeah.
up, like that needs to be hard answered. Like I don't actually know how prevalent it's going to be, but people have already seen a lot of success with Unovan Stunfisk, and
Mhm.
it's just one of the core breakers. And honestly, like the PvPoke rankings already show that it's probably going to climb a good amount. And like it's a Pokemon that I personally don't like to use because it just does so little damage. But
Yeah,
it
fair.
it does a lot of little damage because it paces to its moves very quickly. And it has that roll compression, it has that pacing, it has that bulk. Um so it's probably well positioned, especially because another Pokemon that is not on my winners list and that is actually targeted by the only nerf with the crunch debuff chance reduction, like the Pokemon Drapion, obviously a
Mm,
mainstay as well. It's not on my list, but I think it's going to be around.
yeah.
And you want to have like that quick mud bomb spam now that you can't just mud slap as freely anymore. Um, so yeah, I think that's definitely a good call, even though I will never play it because it is the one electric type that I personally just cannot really handle super well.
That's fair.
I like I like all the others, but it's also a party pooper when I play my own. Um. Anyway, moving on to a Pokemon that I have played some of it. I've never brought it to a tournament though, and I think it's another one of those guys that are going to be happy to see fewer dark types, be happy to see more bugs, and they'll be happy to slot on teams that want to get all the benefits of the ghost typing without being weak to Diggersby. And I think Jellicent is actually going to be a real
Oh,
contender for the water type role.
good call. I'm writing down your picks as well, just so we can compare answers. I looked at Jellison a lot, and I know Rise has made this Pokemon work multiple times. He seems to be a Jellison believer from day one, but I think it is
Really
gaining a
nice.
lot of. He runs it right. He runs it pretty often actually compared to other people. But I think Jellison's a contender. I really do think it's going to be very very good. There's basically no dark outside of Malamar in the meta, and you're going to see Malamar fall out. Well, there's Drapion too, but there's no like what I'm trying to get at is there's no Umbreon, there's no Mandibuzz, there's no not these old dark types. There's no Scrafty, of course. So the dark types are few and far between, and there's no Pangoro really, and I don't see that Pokemon being a rising star either. So yeah, I think the environment you nailed it. The environment is prime for a Jelly takeover. Yeah, my
I
go ahead.
no, no, no. You if you want to present your last pick, please go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
just like really looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my pick is not going to appreciate Jellison very much, but I'm gonna recall back to NAIC 2 years ago, where we had Wadaj, Rise, and House Stark in our top three, to the fire and flying types. I think that this NAIC and Worlds is going to be the Worlds for Talonflame. I think that it's so powerful. It's fire and flying is so good in this current meta, and it's going to target all these bugs really well. Like you said, there might be an overcorrection, maybe at NAIC, maybe at the PJCS, but I think by Worlds, Talonflame will be the star of the show. Personally,
I can totally see that, especially because I have not actually done the calculations just yet, but I know that like a Feraligatr, like it just takes out a Talonflame with a Hydro Cannon. Does a
yep.
Samurott with Fury Cutter do the same? Because it does do double resisted fast attack damage.
Let's
So
see.
I don't know, like if there are scenarios where Talonflame can actually like hang on with minimal HP, I don't know whether that's a thing that will happen, but like definitely the amount of Pokemon that will rely on Fury Cutter bodes well for something that just double resists that. Like I don't
Yeah.
believe that we'll see such an obvious target as Metang a lot in the meta. I feel like that's like something that people have been really excited about just because it's such a goofy idea to have a Fury Cuttering Metang running around. But yeah, like a lot of those Pokemon that are new and improved for this upcoming season are just prime Talonflame targets. And even though I do not have it on my list, because like maybe like in part because I already think that it's very good,
Yeah.
I do agree that it's going to go places. Like a lot of
Mhm.
people are claiming to be the best Talonflame players in the world, and now it's time to
It's
prove
true.
it. So
It's true.
my very last pick is actually not a Pokemon, but an idea of a Pokemon in a
Oh
way,
my
because
god, here we
I
go.
didn't really want to just like shout out one specific pick,
Yeah.
but I think fighting types may be back. They may be a little back. And that is a direct consequence of Malamar falling out of favor, because Malamar has been occupying that role for the most part. You say, okay, like back in the day, every Pokemon had to have a counter user, like either a fighter or
Yeah,
a pseudo fighter.
that's
And
true.
then you had Primeape, Annihilate, all those Pokemon that really reigned supreme for a little while. And then Jumpluff came into the picture, and people adapted with running Ice Punch on the apes, but then the Malamar Jumpluff combination was just too much to handle. And I think we'll see a lot less of that, and I think people will rediscover just how good the fighting type can be, especially now resisting bug types, still having great neutral matchups. And obviously, I've mentioned Primeape, I've mentioned Annihilate, I've mentioned Medicham as a Pokemon that you shouldn't use at home. Um, I am kind of eyeing a spice pick that may or may not one of the Paldean Tauruses, but
Oh my god. I
I've
heard
announced
someone
that
got like
once.
I heard someone got like top of the leaderboards with that Pokemon, but I think that was
That
just a
is true.
legend. That's a
That
myth.
is true. That is true. I
Yeah.
don't know that trainer. Maybe they'll bring it to NASC. So it was a consideration for Utrecht, but that was right around the time when everybody started using Jumpluff Malamar, and that's not the best environment for that Pokemon.
Mhm.
But I think maybe the times are a little better for fighters. So I'm definitely curious to see what comes out on top when I experiment ahead of NAIC.
I don't know, ZZ. I'm looking at the rankings. I see bugs getting stronger. I see Dusclops and Galarian Corsola at number 4, number 5. I see a rise in flying type Pokemon, Gligar returning to the meta, Lapras being an issue. I see all these obstacles to fighting type Pokemon, and
Claudine
maybe
Tauros hits both Gligar and Talonflame for super effective with Aqua Jet while resisting
maybe
their fast attacks.
maybe that's the one that will succeed. But outside of that, I don't know.
I'm a
I mean,
believer.
maybe this is a incredible insight into the future, because it seems like counterintuitive to say the least. But yeah, I don't know.
Counterintuitive. So you're an Annihilate believer. I see. I see.
I am rooting for Paldean Tauros to have
It
success. I really hope it does, because that would be
needs all your support, guys. It needs all your support.
That would be an S tier storyline. I don't think it gets much better than that. But do I think that fighting as an idea is the right place to go? I don't know. I trust you a lot. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Um,
Fair.
all right, my friend. We're closing in on the 2 hour mark. Let's go ahead and jump into our three has-beens. These Pokemon that are just completely going to shatter. They're in shambles. They're out of the meta. We're never going to see them again. And I think one of my picks is actually going to make you upset.
Is that so? Maybe we
Yes.
share the same pick. But you can go ahead
Oh.
because I was first the last time.
Ooh, okay. All right. Well, the first one, we can just breeze through this. We talked about this several times. We have alluded to this. Shadow Malamar, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I think this Pokemon is going to be basically a nobody for NAIC and PJCS. Maybe something will change before Worlds. Maybe a new Pokemon gets introduced and Shadow Malamar comes back or whatever. But in the immediate, Shadow Malamar is DOA, dead on arrival. That's my opinion.
It's very difficult to not have it as a has-been, right? Just
Yeah.
because not only are bugs getting stronger, but also Pokemon that aren't bugs that are filling different niches but are still utilizing Fury Cutter, like Gligar, like Samurott,
Yeah.
so like Metang, I don't know.
Oh, Matang, my
But
boy.
Ooh. But yeah, it's definitely tough times for Malamar. The only hope that it can have right now, I think, is like an overcorrection where everybody beats the things that beat the bugs, but nobody runs the bugs.
Ah,
But I don't know whether you can overcorrect as
that
much, like
much.
so much that Malamar is going to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably dead.
Okay. Was that also on your list of has-beens?
It was also on my list, and
Okay.
I will continue this list with yet another fighting type. And I wonder whether this is not fighting type, psychic type rather. Um, I wonder whether this is the Pokemon that you are considering as the one that makes me sad when it's gone. Because I used to be such a big Claydol believer, and I think it proved me correct. It was
Salute to Claydol. You were awesome, but no
it
longer.
was so neutral.
That's my pick as
It
well.
enabled so many fun plays, but the psychic subtyping is going to be such a detriment for it going into the next season, and just taking super effective damage from everybody's fast attack.
Yes.
It's going to make it so difficult for Claydol to stay around.
My,
It will still be good in like limited metas, but
mm,
other than that, I don't believe that it's going to be the ground type of choice going forward, and it massively inspired my predictions for both Gligar and Diggersby.
I'm glad we're on the same page here. Claydol, my note says psychic typing finally betraying it. KWAC makes more sense again. So
Yeah,
that's just
I
my note.
I wish I
Claydol.
could disagree, but I cannot.
Well, it did have a wonderful time in the sun, and I was a doubter. I was converted into a true believer in the Claydol, but the outlook, if you shake up the magic 8 ball, the outlook is not so good for,
I think okay. One way to fix Claydol
yeah.
would be to give it one more charge attack. Don't you agree with me?
It's going to become Mew. It's going to have like 50 charge attacks. We can't allow that. Come on.
Uh,
I thought you were going to say one way to bring it back is to give it like rock throw or something or some kind of wacky fast attack. I don't know.
yeah, like give it like a rock type mud slap, and maybe we're talking. But,
Give it Smackdown. How about that? Um, all
but
right, that's crazy. So we of our has-beens, we agree on two of the three picks so far.
yes, I think
Um,
we will not agree on the third. But you go
okay,
ahead.
okay. I might be taking the low-hanging fruit here. I'm not a believer in this Pokemon. I haven't been for a long time. I'm sorry, Galactica Bolton, but I just have not seen the merit to this pick in quite a while. But if you're showing up to a bug, fire, and flying type party, you do not want to be superior. I think it's safe to say that Cradilly with Acid might be a new player. Jumpluff likely not going anywhere. Victory Bell with Acid, who knows? Those are all options. I don't think superior is an option anymore at all. And if you bring it, you're a mad lad. That's what I
The
think.
only reason why I did not consider Superior for my delightful days has-beens is because I consider it a Might and Mastery has-been. I think
Oh,
the prevalence of Jumpluff, the prevalence of Shadow Drapion, it's just not a good time to be a superior. And obviously, there's always going to be water types, there's always going to be ground types, but I don't think the pros outweigh the cons here. And a lot of people have been opting for Jumpluff as their grass type and Furret as their grass type damage source.
Mm.
And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I definitely do agree. Even though I did not want to include it just because I
It's a
just
has
it
been.
already. Like, obviously some people still have been able to make it work, but I just
Yeah.
think it's a suboptimal choice. Um, okay, this is going to be a little controversial, but I believe okay, this is like not really like the main has been here is the Portland regional champion Pokemon Blastoise. Um, but generally, I want to say that the mono water starters, the hydro cannon
Mm.
spammers, they are going to face a new challenger, which is new and improved Fury Cutter Samurott. That thing has essentially a non-step Psywave-ish type of deal going on now, which is a one-turn fast attack, which is a lot less clunky than what Blastoise can offer. It's a lot more efficient than what Blastoise can offer too. Um, and I just feel as if Samurott is going to occupy that niche. It's going to occupy it in a different way because it is more comparable to, say, a Shadow Feraligatr, which
Mm.
I think those three may still coexist because they still do different stuff. Feraligatr may be targeting the ghosts with its fast attack, but overall, I believe that just because of the neutral strength and general maneuverability, the strongest water type starter is going to be Samurott, which is going to make it so that Blastoise, especially because I already alluded to it benefiting from no fighters being in the meta, and I kind of believe that there is an opening for fighters again now that Malamar is out of it.
Mm.
Um, I think all of that will compound to the rollout user being put on the back burner a little, and the Fury Cutter user actually reigning supreme.
Wow. I think we've seen glimpses of Blastoise's struggles when it's lined up against Glycopod already, because you're dealing super effective rollout damage, but you either have resisted Hydro Cannon or neutral Skull Bash, or you have Ice Beam, which is also not going to do great. And I feel like that matchup, whenever I'm in it, I feel like it should go better for Blastoise, but it just doesn't. And you're seeing picks like Araquanid, Glycopod. You're seeing these new bugs come in, and you still have targets like Talonflame, Corviknight, whatever, but I agree that the rollout's just underwhelming. I think if it returned to its pre-nerf damage, maybe it would actually be a really significant player. But I think it just doesn't hit hard enough. The pure water types, I agree with you. The hydro cannon users, I'm looking at. I don't know if you're going to believe me on this or not, or if you think I'm talking out of my butt. But if you want to
Please
beat
not.
Stunfisk, Talonflame, Dedenne, Diggersby, Clodsire, Tinkaton, Typhlosion, Sandslash, you have to go with Swampert. And I think that Swampert, being a ground water type, still has a bit of utility. It's going to be interesting to see how many bugs actually make their way into the meta, because I do think that it still has probably the most play of any Hydro Cannon user outside of Samurott. And I don't even know about Samurott because it's not a very bulky Pokemon. So that could be interesting as well. You know what we should do? We should have Stone Collection. He's
Yeah,
like the Samurott guy, right?
he truly is. He did win his half of the last chance qualifier in 2022 to qualify for the World Championships in London with a Samurott, and that was way before anybody considered it. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's definitely going to be delighted to see it back in action. I
I see what you
think,
did there.
like, I'm not 100% certain, but I think he's actually considering competing at NAIC. So that would be a great place to see some Samurott gaming in action.
I hope so. I think he'll be the most dangerous Samurott player in the building if he decides to pick it up because he's already so
Or
familiar
outside
with
of the
it.
building if he decides to sleep there again.
Too soon. Too soon, ZZ.
uh,
All right. He won't be making friends with the pigeons in New Orleans. It'll be seagulls instead. All right. Maybe a pelican here or there. We'll
it's
find
true.
out.
There's a lot of
Um,
friends to be made in New Orleans.
that's true. It is a wonderful place. Um, Interesting. So we actually agreed on two of the has-beens. our final picks being superior, which you think is just so far gone, it wasn't even worth mentioning, and the mono water types. I don't see any problem with your picks. I think you make some really good points. Why don't we just roll into the honorable mentions, and I'll mention all three of them that I think are interesting, and you can tear them apart. What do you say?
Please do. I actually have not prepared any honorable mentions, but I love
Okay.
to talk about just like random Pokemon and give my 2 cents on them.
All right. I'll list them in order of hype to spice. Starting off with hype. There's a ton of hype around Lickitung with Rap. I think that Lickitung, with its ghost type licks and ability to drop the opponent's defense over and over and over, I think Lickitung might be a beast. Second pick is Metang with Fury Cutter, because I know you're not a believer, but I think it's a sick Pokemon. Fury Cutter with Psyshock and Gyro Ball is going to be pretty intense. It depends on the matchups, depends on how much ground is in the meta, but it might have the same issue that Claydol has, being a psychic type. And my third pick is actually not Fortress, but a different Bug Steel. I'm
All
looking
right.
at Wormadam Trash with Ironhead
Oh,
and Bug Buzz. So those are the
what
three
makes what
that
makes you consider it over Fortress?
because it's bulkier. It doesn't have quite the same coverage, but I do think that I don't know
I
if
wanna
Ironhead.
I wanna check by how much it is bulkier.
Okay. I don't know how
If
much
my PvP is
coverage
loading.
Ironhead is going to have, but I know that Stab Bug Buzz, which is more than Fortress can say, it doesn't have any stab charge attacks that it uses. I would say Stab Bug Buzz absolutely annihilates things, and I think it could be good in really neutral matchups. It's a wedge. It's really tough to get rid of.
So Wimbledon Trash does actually have a solid 100 stat product above Fortress. But I don't think that's good enough to give up the absolute menace that is Rock Tomb. I
Fair.
think um I think people will still go for Fortress just because the charge attacks are a night and day difference. What I'm wondering about though is whether people are going to elect to run the so-called double nuke moveset of Rock Tomb and Earthquake,
Mm.
or whether they maybe go for a Sand Tomb or Mirror Shot to have a little bit of a
Ooh.
cheaper option now that they don't have the fast charging World Switch at their disposal anymore.
Ooh, good point. Yeah, if you're more damage focused, it might make sense to include a bait move instead of a Rock Tomb Earthquake. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. You laughed when I said rap Lickitung. Why'd you
Yes,
laugh? This
yes.
is not funny.
Yeah.
It's
I
kind of
think
funny.
I think Rap Lickitung is comically bad. I think it will see no play whatsoever. If you run it, you're playing with 5 Pokemon. And the
All
reason
right.
for that is we are not in the 1 minute switch timer era anymore. People
Oh.
are just going to pivot out their debuff, and you now have a move that costs 10 more energy than Body Slam to do the exact same damage that old Body Slam did, and then you have a debuff that you can just reset every 45 seconds, which is approximately the amount of time that you need to get to one rep. So again, like, I was not even a big Licky hater. I thought it was not exciting, but it enabled neutral play. I just think that it's plain bad, and that people will discover that really soon. Like, it's like ranked 200 something on PvPoke, I think, and I think it's a deserved low ranking because people will just not give you the satisfaction of staying in that debuffed Lickitung matchup forever.
I'm just going to quote Austin Powers when he's in the casino and he's at the blackjack table and he already has 20 and he tells the dealer to hit. He said, "I too like to live dangerously." And I think that if you if you choose Lickitung, you are living quite dangerously. You make a good point about the switch timer. I gotta remind myself from time to time to get inside the head of ZZ, who is always screwing with that switch timer, moving it around, changing things up, and shuffling the cards. Uh,
So for me
it's a good
personally,
point.
the switch timer is not an option; it's an obligation. I just gotta
Yes,
pivot in and out. I need to keep 2 Pokemon as a sack swap, even
I
though
agree.
there will not be a situation coming up where I need them. It's just life
Well,
sometimes, right?
I might need to change this from honorable mentions to picks that get a rise out of Zzweilous because
Please hit me with more of them. I could do this all day.
yeah, right. It's like, oh, I didn't know this was turning into a roast. Let's go ahead and roast. What is your issue? It's like we're in an interrogation room, and I just slam my hands on the table. What is your issue with Fear Cutter Metang? Where were you on Tuesday night?
Oh god. Like Shurikata Metang, I know that some people are really excited, largely because of goofiness, in part also because Steel remains a very strong defensive typing. Um, but I just like Psychic is so vulnerable. We
Yeah.
just did a whole segment on how Talonflame is going to be the star of any ICN Worlds. Will you want to be the Metang in that situation, or will you
Oh
pick
yeah.
and choose your fire type weaknesses very carefully? And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to
Triple
be a
size
really
shock.
fun. It's going to be like a Grumpig type of character where you see it occasionally in GBL. It may be usable in a themed cup, but it's not actually going to steal the show at a regional event. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So
let me down easy. Thanks, Wireless.
it's okay. It's okay. I'm just like looking over the changes and see whether we forgot anything. Like there's Hex Skeledirge that's not going to do anything because you really do want the fast
Incinerate.
attack damage to ramp up with Torch Song. There's going to be Poison Sting Beetle, which looks really fun on paper. I think it's a little bit of a copium Pokemon, but
Yeah.
one that I might indulge in occasionally. Um,
What about Tentacruel?
Tentacruel is one that is going to be very interesting because you have like three flavors of poison with it. You have
Mm-hmm.
Poison Jab for the maximum amount of fast move pressure, which synergizes fairly well with Acid Spray. You have Poison Sting, which allows you to really spam out those charge attacks, get scald and scald and scald off. Maybe run Sludge Wave with it, maybe run Blizzard with it. And then you have the middle of the road option in Acid, which does both hit pretty hard and generate energy faster than Poison Jab. So I wonder what will be preferred on Tentacruel. I think I would personally probably be an acid type of guy, and I could see it work out
Mm,
quite well.
yeah, you're definitely pretty toxic, so it makes sense you choose acid. Just kidding. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know there's so many other smaller changes. I don't know if Ember is going to make an impact, for example, but maybe I don't know.
It's likely not enough just yet. Like I wish they like I would have liked to see um maybe like an air cutter for Charizard, which doesn't like
Mm,
do a lot for it. It's the same pacing as Dragonclaw, but you would get stab on it. You would
mm,
also get the 30% chance of raising your attack by one stage, which like again, it probably wouldn't have changed the Pokemon. But I just like being able to play Charizard, and Ember buff could
it's fun.
provide an option, but it's not going to be the same at the same power level as it was when Human Catcher Bug won Liverpool on the wings of his Shadow Charizard. Speaking of majestic flying creatures,
Mm.
do you believe that Galarian Moltres is going to see an increase again?
So Galarian Moltres, as well as Galarian Articuno and Galarian Zapdos, all gain access to fly. I haven't looked at the simulations, and I kind of think that as a Moltres player, I guess you have three options now. You can do Ancient Power Brave Bird, which is the kind of like the bait and nuke set that we were all familiar with. You can go double flying, and you can do Brave Bird Fly, or you can do some combination of Fly and Ancient Power, or yeah, I guess it'd have to be Fly and Ancient Power. So lower energy cost. I haven't looked at the simulation, so I honestly am not that well informed. What do you think? Do you think it's a player?
So my personal take is that the preferred moveset is 10 out of 10 times going to be Fly and Brave Bird,
Okay.
which like some people call that the Zzweilous special in
Oh
another
yeah.
context,
Double
which
fly.
I personally disagree with because I did not coin that Talonflame moveset, but I do appreciate the casters repeating that every broadcast anyway. Um,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know, it's like an EU phenomenon. But I do think that Galarian Moltres is going to it's going to see play
Yeah.
because now you can get to an attack that threatens Jumpluff, which was a really sad Pokemon to lose to, a little faster again. And you don't really want to be a flying type that loses to another flying type as much.
Fair.
Um, so I think it's going to see, like, it's definitely a plus for it. It's also going to be beneficial for Galarian Articuno, which now paces to fly every 5 Psycho Cuts. But again, this is a Pokemon that we will not have to consider for the Championship Series whatsoever. That privilege only belongs to Moltres, and I think people are going to use it, but it's like not going to be a top 12 graphics type
Mm,
of Pokemon. It's just like, okay, you went from a little bit of a has-been to usable again. But
yeah.
that's basically all she wrote.
In the one shields, it looks like it goes 24 and 22 with an average rating of 474, which is basically you can't get much more middle of the road than that in terms of
Exactly.
matchups. Its worst losses are against things like Tickaton, which we come to expect, or Morpeko, which is threatening. And it does have PvPoke does have it marked as a loss versus Jumpluff as well. But when you actually dive into the simulation a bit more, it's only one turn different. So if you have
Yeah.
just one sucker punch, you're able to get to the fly you need to win. I assume it's a fly. But yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think it's got a ton of utility. And if we do expect to see Fortress with Bug Bite, if we expect to see Jellicent, if we expect to see other ground types or whatever it might be, having Stab Sucker Punch and Stab Fly
Exactly.
actually sounds pretty good.
Like the flying subtyping is one of the ways of eliminating your Fury Cutter weakness and still be a
Mm-hmm.
viable dark type. So I think
Agreed.
just that is a pretty good niche for it. Um, and yeah, the other Sucker Puncher is likely going to be the Ferret that we've seen a lot of, but that's non-stab. So if you
Yeah.
really want the oppressive Sucker Punches, probably got to lean into Bombardier, Galarian Moltres, maybe Spiritomb, all those Pokemon that have a subtyping that allows them to actually take neutral damage from Fury Cutter.
Yeah. And you're also resisting Furret Sucker Punches, right? Which is pretty cool.
That is
So,
true. That is true. As
so
the Galarian Moltres, you do have that benefit.
there might be something there. But yeah, again, I just want to emphasize everybody. We did spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's just so exciting, and it's something that we've had on our minds. There's a lot of other updates as well, so I encourage everyone to go and check out the full list. I'm honestly surprised that ZZ and I agreed on a few of these picks, and I do think he made some really good points. Again, I'm changing my honorable mentions to get a reaction from Zzweilous category is what I'm going to call that. But ZZ, the season is coming up on the end here, and if you want to get championship points, you have 12 days to do so, which is less than 2 weeks. So if you have not maxed out your locals, cups and challenges, etc., you should definitely go and do that. The last two events of the season are NAIC June 13th through the 15th, and the PJCS, which is a one-day event on June the 22nd in Japan. I think that Not Rob May is going to be covering that event. He might be doing a live stream with a bit of translation as well. So I'm really excited to see what he does. But NAIC is going to be a thrill. I'm going to be there competing. You're going to be there as well. We're going to
Yeah.
try and create some content and have a good time competing. And hopefully we don't pair in the bracket, because that would honestly be sinister if we paired against each other. I would not appreciate that
It was a
unless it's the grand
fairly
finals.
closely fought battle when we faced each other in the joust hosted by Amanda Lundberg and her
Just
Cerulean card.
just be honest, Easy. I won off of some nonsense. All right. I played double electric into your team, and that was nonsensical, and it worked. Because against a smart person like you have to do something dumb to find a win con. All right.
But I'm
That
also like known to be a double electric appreciator, right? Like I used to run Ampharos Magnezone in Ultra League all the time. So
poetry.
like,
Poetry in
game
motion.
recognized game.
Amen. Amen, brother. All right. In terms of upcoming in-game events, I don't have any on my list, but I do want to mention one big one. That is going to be the New Jersey Go Fest that is coming up this weekend. I'm flying out on Wednesday. I plan to spend some time in the Big Apple and then head over to Jersey City to host the first ever Pokemon Go live stream event. The whole goal of this program is actually twofold. The first objective is to show the best that GoFest has to offer, whether it's the spawns, the raids, the Gigantamax, the friends that you have there, the lucky trades, whatever it might be. And the second objective is to teach trainers about how to become a better trainer overall, whether it's learning about routes or party play or how to maximize your Dynamax battles, are basically what Pokemon you need to pick up for PvP. That's all going to be included. I'm hosting it with Gabby, so I'm really excited because her Pokemon knowledge is basically bottomless. She knows everything about Pokemon, and I think she's going to be a great complement, especially for a lot of newer trainers that might be watching the stream. If you're listening to this podcast, you enjoy PvP. I think that's pretty obvious, unless maybe you stumbled upon this and you're just now realizing that it is about PvP. This stream for GoFest is going to be PvE focused primarily, although there will be tournaments going on in the background. We've got some really fun segments planned for that as well. But we will be talking about general Pokemon Go stuff. So if you're in New Jersey this weekend, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to see you. Come up, say hi. As long as we're not on camera, I would appreciate it. But maybe we will get you on camera for a segment. I think that'd be really, really fun. But yeah, DZ, that's all I've got. 12 days to get championship points. NAIC is going to be a blast. We're going to learn a lot more after the practice tournaments that we do and our scrims as well. And GoFest is going to be a hoot. It's going to be.
Speedy, I have a content idea for that GoFest stream for you. This is not pre-planned, by the way.
No, I have no idea what you're going to say.
Showcase. You get a group of trainers, and because it's like New Jersey, essentially New York, like it's so close, right? And we recently had the Applin release in Pokemon Go, and because of the Big Apple, you ask a group of trainers to show their biggest Applin, and whoever has the biggest apple gets a big apple as a reward. Can you do that? Wow. It would be way too dang.
I really thought that you were going to go I thought you were going to go a different route and say that they had to all play triple Applin in a GBL battle. And I was going to be like, I don't know how that's going to end well, but I like the direction you chose.
It was PvE focused, right? I'm just getting with the program.
It is. I do think an Applin size contest, especially when you consider that behind the broadcast booth, you're going to be able to see the Statue of Liberty. You're going to see the New York City skyline. I think having an Applin size contest would be ideal. Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna write that down and tell Gabby right now.
I'm looking forward to see it on stream.
Awesome. We'll credit you as well. We'll say this is the new Zzweilous special. It's all about apples. I'll say that. All right, my friend. Those are my closing thoughts. I'm really excited for the GoFest stream. From the Big Apple to the Big Easy, back-to-back weekends. That's Pokemon life for you, and I can't wait to do it. I think this is another great episode, and I'm excited to see fighting types not do anything at NAIC.
Aquareed Taurus has a thing or two to say about that. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to big things and potentially a little bit of a preview episode before NAIC as well. So stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned, everybody. We're going to dive in a lot more deep into the meta changes, what we think is good, maybe some team compositions, players to watch. Just like we do for all the ICs, we're going to have a really, really nice preview. And I can't wait to see if Paldean Tauros is the truth or if it's just bull. But thank you so much, ZZ. We'll catch you in the next episode, my friend. Okay.